Hey everyone, Nick here from Talking Cardboard, and today I'll be doing another first impression, unboxing, solo playthrough review of a board game that I backed on Kickstarter. This time the game that I'll be talking about is Company of Heroes. Now, before I go any further, a brief background on Company of Heroes. For those of you who have never heard of Company of Heroes, it originally was a PC game that came out many years ago. Later, they came out with Company of Heroes 2 as well. I think it's only on PC. I don't believe they ever made versions of it on any consoles. And Company of Heroes is a tactical World War II themed RTS game where you're controlling vehicles and soldiers and also managing resources during World War II. And it definitely at least was the European theater of World War II. I don't know if there was expansions or in the second version of Company of Heroes it expanded to the other theaters. But with that said, that's the premise of this board game. It's a board game implementation of this PC game that was developed by Sega, I believe. So, with that said, I actually never played the PC game Company of Heroes. I was well aware of it when it came out, and it just didn't, even though I'm a big fan of RTS games and a big fan of the World War II theme, I never actually got into that specific game because I think it seemed a little too arcadey and not realistic enough for me when it comes to a PC game or World War II themed PC game, mainly because when in RTS games, I'm never a fan of health bars, and when a unit gets hit by like a giant explosion or a catapult that they just take 50 health and they're still living. I prefer like the Total War types of combat where when a giant catapult hits your troops, like 50 of them die, and that's the kind of RTS experience I'm more acclimated to. With that said, when I saw that they were going to make a Kickstarter version, or a board game version, I should say, on Kickstarter, of a RTS game with a World War II theme, that captured my attention. And what really clinched the deal for me to back this game was the fact that they were going to offer solo and cooperative play. So at that point, I knew I had to back the game. Okay, so some details about the actual Kickstarter. This Kickstarter finished its crowdfunding in June of 2019. It had an original delivery date, I think, of May 2020. Obviously, I'm sure partly because of coronavirus, it got delayed until basically about now is when a lot of the Kickstarter or backers like myself are getting the game. But I still applaud Bad Crow Games for getting this game out at all. I applaud any board game company for getting their games out that had to go through the coronavirus. And in addition to the timing, I think 4,500. There were a total of 4,500 backers that backed this game for a total amount of $830,000 USD dollars. So a relatively large board game Kickstarter project. Not the biggest in the world, but definitely not a small one. I'm sure part of it was definitely because they had a pretty strong IP. Like I said, even though I haven't played Company of Heroes, the PC game, it definitely was, I would say, a relatively well-acclaimed PC game for its time. I personally backed the $125 pledge, cooperative bundle pledge. There wasn't any MSRP listed in the pledge, so I don't know what the retail value of what I got is. I also am not 100% sure there's any intent to bring this to retail. It might have been just a Kickstarter exclusive game. With that said, I have a feeling they are going to do another version, or a reprint, I should say, of this game, and it would be another Kickstarter project. So keep an eye out for that. With that said, what I really appreciated about this game's development is they had a Discord page that they were actively following the developers of the game, and with that they also had a tabletop simulator mod that was developed and allowed players to try out the game and give feedback to the developers. And also they did a good job of providing drafts of the rulebook for people to look at and edit and provide feedback on. So, that's what I like about, in this day of age with all these technological tools at our disposal. I appreciate when a board game publishing company takes advantage of that, like I just said, Discord and Tabletop Simulator, to try to make the very best game possible. Too many times, I'll read a rule book and there's some pretty simple errors that I think could have easily be caught if there was just a little more proofreading. Well, in this day of age, put your draft up on a Discord channel and let a bunch of people look at it and take the feedback that you want. And at the very least, it's not going to hurt you to take feedback, look at feedback. It's time consuming, but at the end of the day, it's free feedback. And I appreciate any board game company that tries to take advantage of that, because it's a win-win. Us gamers want the very best possible game a game company can make, and a game company wants to make the very best possible game they can make. So with that said, let's go and unbox this thing. I've been waiting eagerly since it landed on my doorstep a week ago, but I wanted to wait until I actually started recording this video, so it was a true first impression for you guys. So thank me for my patience, guys, because I really did want to open this thing up. It looks huge. I don't know exactly what's in it. Like I said, I got the cooperative bundle, which I think comes with at least the base game and cooperative and solo play stuff. But in terms of Kickstarter content and all that, I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to be getting myself into here. So I'm excited, and let's get started. All right, so we're about ready to get started here. First thing that I want to point out is this is the setup for a solo gameplay of Company of Heroes, a board game. If you're playing competitively, it would look a little different. The setup, or this particular scenario, comes from the mission booklet. And honestly, the solo rules don't give a lot of background on what scenarios work well with the solo rules and which ones maybe don't so much. But nonetheless, it says for your first game in general of Company of Heroes, the board game, to use this Trois-Ponts map, which I'm guessing that's Trois-Ponts or something similar. I'm not a French speaker. And it gives you a little flavor text about this map, I guess. So I assume it's a historical, it has some historical basis to it. And then, like it says even here, Trois-Ponts is recommended for your first game and for most players. And there's a lot of buildings in this map. So the other thing I want to point out is the 3D elements on the board do come from the Terrain Expansion 1. So normally you just have a 2D token to represent the various command points on the map, and then buildings, you don't even have anything to represent the building, because the map itself shows a picture of a building, so you wouldn't even have these at all, or wouldn't need any kind of piece of gameplay piece for buildings. But I decided to get the Terrain Pack 1 because people basically convinced me that it was worth getting. Now that I have the game set up and everything, it's kind of like, was it worth the 30 extra bucks to have I mean, these buildings are nice, but it's just, I don't know functionally if I feel they're going to be necessary or not, and same with these command posts things. Nonetheless, obviously it does help the game pop out a little more on the table. Okay, so a few other elements of setup. When you're playing a solo game, you're, instead of using the 3D miniatures that you would in a competitive game, which the player still uses in a solo game, like these guys, and essentially the other types of miniatures the game comes with, essentially the tanks and everything. The AI player just uses these circular tokens that represent units, and I shouldn't be peeking, but just to give you an example of one unit, this is the armored car for the AI player, and stat-wise, it's similar to what a normal player unit would have. They have a health, they have a range, and then they have the damage that they do listed here, and they operate similarly to how a player unit would. But point being is it's just a token instead of an actual either single or multiple miniatures. And instead of giving you all the rules up front, we'll kind of just play the game and I'll explain things as I go along. But you'll notice there's 4 colors. Each color represents a different overall type of enemy unit, AI unit. Green is typically an infantry, from what I understand at least, typically an infantry unit. Red's a heavy weapon type unit. Blue is like a artillery type of unit, or long range type unit, and then yellow is a like a light vehicle type of unit, which does correlate to the kind of units the players are going to have at their disposal. You know, blue, green, or green, yellow, red, and then purple typically represents installation actually. But okay, so that's what the enemy has. To start the game, you first have to pick a commander that you want to play against. So the solo expansion comes with a variety of commanders you can choose from, and they differ on based on difficulty. So I will assume that the more difficult commanders have more units that they will bring onto the board. So for my first game, I'm choosing the easy difficulty commander, which is called the feeble commander. And what this card basically tells you is round by round what the enemy will spawn on the board. For a competitive game and for the human players in general, besides just the starting unit, which you get to bring on the board, which is always 2 green health or infantry units, the only way you get more units on the board typically is by purchasing them during the supply phase, which eventually we'll get to. But for the AI, they don't worry about resources they don't worry about resource management. Period. They bring units on following what it says on their commander card. So to start the game, they do start with 2 green token units. So similar to what the human player would start with, being 2 green units. And then round by round, you add to the board what the card tells you to. So the next round, they would add 1 yellow token. Round after that, round 3, they add a blue token, and so on. Now, one thing you might notice is that the first few tokens are outlined in white, and then they become outlined in red. And that's because when it's the AI's turn during the maneuver phase, their turn is dictated by the AI action deck. And so, assuming, let's say this is the first turn for the AI player, they will flip the card and they will follow the actions listed on the card from top to bottom, and eventually I'll explain what each of these will do. But going back to the AI commander card, the first few rounds, the AI is using what's called action deck phase 1, so the deck here on the left, and then once the AI switches over to the red rounds, the red outline rounds, then you start using the action deck phase 2 for the AI player. And I think, from my understanding, or from my assumption, is it becomes more intense. The actions that the AI player is going to be doing in phase 2 are just maybe a little more aggressive in nature than what they may be typically doing in phase 1. But we'll get to experience that together ourselves. Okay. And then the other big comment I want to make is the game comes with advanced and basic rules. And one thing already that is a little frustrating for me, I'll admit, is the fact that I'm basically referencing 4 different rule books as I'm trying to get this first gameplay underway. One is the mission booklet, which I think now that I have the board set up, I really shouldn't have to reference anymore, but there's some still important information that you'll need to look at for playing a game in there. And then you have the basic rules, which of course is basic gameplay. And then you have the advanced rules, which I will be using in this initial playthrough. What's frustrating to me is nowhere in the solo rulebook do they really say you should play with advanced rules, you should not play with advanced rules, you should play with only these advanced rules but not these advanced rules. They imply you can play with advanced rules, and on the Discord group I asked, and people say, well, just play with the advanced rules, why not? I'm like, okay, but I would prefer in the game itself telling me what to do, not that I have to go to social media and have people give me their opinion on how I should play the game. So anyway, I will play with the advanced rules, which do add more flavor to the game. And unless you're maybe playing your very first war game ever, I don't think the advanced rules add that much complexity. But then, of course, you're also going to be referencing the solo rulebook to play the solo game. So personally, I wish they just condensed at least all this into 2 rulebooks, if not 1. None of them are extremely long. So anyway, one gripe right away. But point being is I'm going to be playing this game with basic and advanced rules. Of course, obviously the solo rules. And I'll try to call out what's an advanced rule, what's not as we play the game, so you can understand that as you're watching. But just want to get that out there. Okay, so in terms of how the gameplay flows, so first I should, I guess there's a lot to kind of explain background, but first I'll start with the round sequence. So each side takes turns doing the maneuver phase. On your turn of the maneuver phase, you get to spend up to 3 command points, and those command points are represented by white cubes that you would place on your units. And each unit can absorb up to 3 command points during the whole maneuver round. And you can one space of movement is 1 command point. So to signify that, you can just place the command point in the space with the unit you moved. But let's say I want to move them again, then I just spend a 2nd command point, and when maybe I want to move them one more time, I get to spend the 3rd command point. And now I'm done with my turn, for example. That unit also will not be able to move again in this maneuver phase because they've used 3 total command points. Alternatively, I could have done 1, 2, and put those 2 command cubes next to the unit to show it's used 2 this turn. Then move this other infantry unit I have, 1. And then I've used 3 for my turn, so I'm done. Then the other player would go, or the AI player would go. Then the turn comes back to me, and then I have 3 more cubes I get to spend. And what's this say? Okay, I'll spend 1. Even though that they move the first turn, they still have the opportunity to move again because they've only used 2 cubes. So I can spend 1 more to get them on that resource point. And then the other unit that I have here, I can spend a point to move them in there. And I technically still have 1 cube left that I could use. I couldn't use it on this unit because it already has 3 cubes. I could use it on that unit, but I don't want to move them any further because I want them to secure that resource point during this upcoming supply phase for this round. So that's a very quick overview of how the maneuver phase works. The enemy AI does operate in a similar fashion, but I'll just show you how they work once we start playing the game. Because I don't want to bore you with too many details. So when you start the game, every faction has essentially 3 buildings at your disposal that you can use to make new units. When you start, you only have 1 of those buildings available. And then to unlock your next buildings, you do have to pay the cost to essentially, I guess, build the building in resources, which in this case it's 1 human resource and 3 fuel resources if I want to just have the ability to build stuff off here. So I would then flip it around. And now I have access to these units as well. And you do have to make your 2nd building before you can make your 3rd building. So you can't just jump to the good stuff. Well, I guess it does say down here if you want, you can spend what would be 1 additional fuel to make this without the 2nd building. So I guess I was a little wrong there. But so that's how buildings work. Then each building, like I was just saying, you can has a variety of units you can make from it. And again, each unit is going to cost you resources as denoted on the right here. Infantry, of course, typically are going to require human resources, whereas vehicles typically are going to be more fuel heavy. And then in terms of the resources, that's managed on this player board here. So when you start the game, the rules say you have 1 point of income for, should say that, 1 point of income for human resources, ammunition, and fuel. And then you also have a stockpile of 4 points of each of those as well. That basically is what you have in the bank. So this is what you generate each turn. This is, of course, then what you have in the bank of each resource. And then also tracked is victory points, which you don't have any income to start the game with, and you don't have any stockpiled either. But to get victory points, you have to take control of the relevant victory point locations on the map. So for each resource, there's various resource locations that you need to control in order to generate more of that given resource. Obviously, like I just said, or as you can imagine, to win the game, you need victory points. So in a sense, you could say these are the most valuable, and it's probably a little difficult to see, but the star points are the most valuable because that's actually what gets you a victory. But of course, if you're spending more time trying to go after those resource points, that means less time on the other ones, which means you're not going to generate as many resources to make units. So of course, you have to balance what's more important each round. And finally, one more thing is when you play the game for the advanced rules, they incorporate what's called commander cards. And commander cards, there's various commander cards that come with the base game, several for each faction. So for the U.S. faction, one of the command cards is called Ranger Company, and they all have, each command card kind of has a theme. So Ranger Company is, I'm going to assume, more often than not, I guess, abilities that improve the effectiveness of infantry. But you can see that this one, of course, is a tank upgrade. But point being is these command cards give you extra abilities that you can spend your experience points on. And that's kind of, I guess, a fifth currency, so to speak, is experience, which is tracked down here. But experience is also in itself a advanced rule concept. If you're playing basic rules, you wouldn't even play with experience, therefore you wouldn't be playing with these commander cards. But again, for the sake of this, to show off the game to its fullest, I figure I definitely want to play with experience, and therefore also the command cards to hopefully take advantage of some of these abilities, and also to get experience points, as you may be wondering, since the 4 types of resources are points on the map, but the experience point comes from destroying enemy units. And I think damaging enemy units also typically gets you an experience point, but for the soul rules specifically, it says that you only get experience points when you destroy AI units, not when you simply just damage them. And man, that's a high-level overview. Obviously left out some details, but again, I just want to start playing this game since I've been reading through these rule books a ton, and I just want to start playing the game. So, okay. In an AI game, the rules do say that the human player gets to go first. So, as I kind of briefly went over at the beginning, I get 3 command cubes I can use. And I'm just going to take this infantry unit, which is technically called my riflemen. And I'm going to move them 1, 2, 3 spaces into that human resource command space, and that's going to be, they're done for the whole round. I've used up my 3 cubes. Actually, I gotta check to see if I technically was supposed to flip the enemy command card first. I may have done that wrong, or may already be making mistakes here. The players always go first. The AI reveals a new action card at the beginning of each of its turns. So no, I actually did that right. So my turn's done. Now it's the enemy's AI's turn. So they flip over a phase 1 action card. And then we go in order, top to bottom. And you're probably wondering, okay, well, how do I know what each of these means? Well, also, the enemy has... oh, here we go. The enemy has these cards. They're AI instruction cards, which explain what each icon does. So the first icon is the green victory point one. And you just follow the directions then on the AI direction card of the relevant symbol, which again was the green victory point, and simply do what it says. So green unit not on a control point. So right there, how many, we can look at the board. What are the options that the AI has for green unit not on a control point? Well, neither of those are on a control point, so either is still an option. So then you read down to the next part, which gives you the priorities. So closest to a victory point. Well, which is closest to a victory point? Well, we can count the closest victory point, I think. Well, let's just see. There's one there, one there. Okay, so this unit could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then this one could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So in both cases, there's a victory point that's equally close to each of the enemy units. Therefore, the priority then moves down to reading order. In reading order, the rulebook gives credit to Scythe, I think, or a solo mode made for Scythe. And reading order is essentially looking at the board left to right, like this image, and choosing the option based on whatever would come first. So, in terms of reading order, either of those units is an option. So, in looking at reading order, this unit would become the chosen unit for this action, which again is the green victory point. And then we've picked our unit, so we finally did that. We move on to the next part, which is what it will do, which is move towards the nearest victory point. So pretty self-explanatory, which is again here for this unit. So it goes 1, 2, 3. Then the enemy used 3 command cubes there of command, since it did move 3 spaces. One other thing I didn't point out is for human players, you always have just 3 command cubes per turn, and then 9 total for the round. The number of cubes the AI gets is actually listed on their commander card. So in the case of the AI commander here we're playing against, for phase 1, it has 3 command cubes per turn, for a total of 9 per round. Alright, so then technically we would actually still look through the rest of the card, but it did use up 3 points, so we would just skip these next 2 actions. In theory, if for whatever reason there was still command cubes left over after this first action, or that first action was unusable, we would just move on to the next and continue down until the AI has used up their 3 command cubes. So the AI turn's now over. We get to go back to our turn. So once again, I get 3 command cubes to use. As explained earlier, once a unit already has 3 command cubes spent for the round, they're done. So I can't do anything with this unit anymore. So my only other unit is this one here, and I'm going to move them 1, and then I'll move them 1 more into this space to try and capture that fuel resource point. And I'll just stop there. And that does mean that I have 1 command cube remaining, but if you don't spend it on the turn, it does get exhausted. So that's okay. My turn's done. We go to the enemy turn, flip a card, see what they do. Alright, this case, the first action is supposed to be a blue unit, which they don't even have on the board yet. In case you're curious, the blue bomb action is called Blue Barrage, but we don't have to worry about it right now since they don't even have a unit to do that. So then we move down and it's another green victory point action. So this time around our choice is much simpler because their only option is the unit that hasn't moved yet, because this one is done. So with that said, we would move it towards the nearest victory point, which I do need to count here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4. I think. Well, this already is getting me a little confused because technically you can't land on an enemy, you can't land on a unit. You can go through at least allied units. So a direct route would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because I think that you can technically count through the building as well, since infantry can go through a building. And now I gotta measure distance. Okay, there's a part. When an instruction card refers to a distance, it means the number of hexes the AI must move to get to that hex. For example, if a river is between a unit control, the distance between two is the number of hexes the unit must move around. All right, well, so that didn't really help me. I'm just gonna say they move to this one because it makes more sense that unit's going to be going for that one. This unit's going to go for that one. So we'll say that's the case. So it will go 1, 2, 3, and then it's done with its turn. Plus, actually, it's even though it doesn't need that resource point anyway, so that's kind of irrelevant. But it does by chance end up on a resource point, which if it was a human player, that'd be a good thing. Okay, so enemy now is done with their 3 resources, command cubes. Turn comes back to me because technically we have 9 total cubes for the whole round, 3 each turn. So technically I would get 3 more again, just to illustrate actual gameplay here. So technically I have 3 more to spend. I can't spend any on this one because it's already got 3. It's done. This one I technically could activate and use 1 cube to move it 1 space. I mean, in theory, moving into that building isn't the worst idea in the world, but then it does give up the position that I have at this resource point, which I need to stay there if I want to capture it. So I will give up my 3 command cubes. Then it goes to the enemy, but the enemy doesn't have any units on the board right now that could do anything. So they're done as well. And you might be asking, do I still draw a card? I don't even know. I don't think the rules don't go into that kind of detail. But we'll say I drew a card. Okay, well, it can't do anything because all of its units are done. So it also will have to waste its 3 remaining command cubes. So, okay, that is the maneuver phase. Now we move on to damage. So the damage phase is referenced or summarized here. So first we check for pin units. Pinning is something that we'll probably get to eventually. I'm not going to go into detail on how pinning works now, but as of now, no, there's no reason to worry about units being pinned. Assigning and damage and all that stuff can be ignored because none of these units are within range of each other. For infantry, their range is 2. So of course, the closest situation are these 2 guys, but the distance between them is more than 2. It's also that also is the extent of line of sight. So I haven't explained this yet, but this unit will become revealed once it's within 2 spaces and in line of sight of one of my units. So if it were here, for example, then I would actually flip that unit over and reveal what it is. But since that's not the case, my turn, or there's just no damage at all during the damage phase this time. And then we move on to supply phase. So first is capture control points. Now, I have control points over here that I get to capture. and I will denote captured. So these come from the, again, terrain expansion #1, terrain pack #1. So I get little flags to, they also give you red flags. So I've captured those. That's cool. Now we move on to adjust incomes. So now my human resource income is, also I think it's called manpower. I keep saying human resource, but it's definitely manpower. So manpower goes up to 2 now, from the default 1 that I started with, and then fuel moves up 1. So now I'm making 2 manpower and 2 fuel each turn, which is great. Each round, I should say. Then I get to collect what I make. So I now make 2 human manpower, so that boosts me up from 4 to 6 for manpower. I go up 1 for weapons, which gets me to 5 now, and then 2 for fuel, which gets me up to 6. And I'm still not, I don't have any victory point captured, so I don't get any victory points. And then I get to purchase units and upgrades. So, already I'm like, okay, well, what do I want to do here? I'm kind of conflicted. Maybe bringing in a mortar crew would be cool, just to see what, that costs 4 manpower. But, yeah, actually I should take that back. The vehicle sounds kind of cool too. And the vehicle comes with, I can also upgrade. Okay, so that's the other thing too that I should explain. You can also upgrade existing units. So on the left is if you want to spend experience to upgrade a unit. That unit then gains the benefit shown on the left side. On the right is if I wanted to spend resources to upgrade the unit, and then I get whatever is shown here. Oh boy, I'm experiencing some analysis paralysis with this decision, so I apologize for that. Well, let's just buy stuff. So I'll get a mortar crew, which comes with 3 units on it, denoted by the health of the unit. Oops. And then, since it's a weapons team, a mortar crew, it gets a little miniature mortar token, which I think is cool. Alright, and that can just, I guess it doesn't really matter where that goes. So that's on the, so I got that unit good, that unit's good to go. Oh, and not surprisingly, since it's a weapons team, you do have to worry about the mortar crew being set up and not set up. And to represent if they're ready to use their mortar or not, you have this red cube. And it does start, it spawns on the table as packed, so it gets this red slash whatever symbol you want to call unpacked or packed up symbol, I guess we'll say, and that die is used to represent that. And then we will get that vehicle, which is the Willys Jeep, which I'll put here. And health for vehicles is just denoted by damage cubes. So, and then one thing to point out is the mortar crew has a range of 4 spaces, but it can attack adjacent units, and has a high explosive damage type. And then the Jeep only has 2 health, only has 2 range like the infantry, but also has the speed ability, which gives them an extra movement per turn, which is kind of nice. And yeah. So that's the 2 units that I purchased. And now I have to pay for them. So it was a total of 6 manpower and 2 fuel. And that's my supply phase. The enemy, I don't think, really does anything on their supply phase. Yeah, so that would be the first round of the game. So now that So now that that's occurred, we move the cube over. Maybe actually, sorry, their supply phases, they get to add in the next unit that they would be able to bring in based on their command card. And I apologize for not having this better thought out. But let me just double check here. So damage, supply phase. So we did the capture. For the AI, all green, yellow, and blue units capture that point, whether they are revealed or not. Yeah, so I guess it's still... and so I didn't show this, but I'll show it now. It does seem important to actually signify that the enemy has captured a supply point, and gives me a good reason to actually use this terrain pack I bought. So now that supply point was taken over by the enemy. Alright. And during the supply phase, move the AI round marker 1 space to the right, which I did, and spawn the indicated number of units on and around the AI's base. So this terminology is bad. Base doesn't, I don't know how it made it in the final edit of this rulebook. Doesn't exist. There's no enemy base already online. They've updated the rulebook to show that this should be, I think, reinforcement or spawn point, which is this part, this space on the map. So so then that's where this unit would spawn, which I'll show you guys, is a 1 single yellow unit. So that guy comes here. Oh yeah, crap. So I started the game wrong. Oh boy. I just literally said, I blame the game, because the game originally was, the solo game rules weren't clear on that. Where I had the unit start was where where I had the enemy unit start, that is where they're pictured supposedly supposed to be starting in this rulebook. So, alright. So I'm not going to take credit for that. And during supply plays, okay, move. Some commanders have 2 which spawn a different number of AI depending on how well the players are doing, which I don't think is the case for this. And we're not in the red phase, okay. And if the marker on the AI command card has reached the defeat star, players have lost. So that begs the question, how do we win? Which I don't think I've explained yet. Well, we need to have 10 victory points before the enemy gets to the defeat. So 10 victory points in order for us to win. And let's see, that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So by round 9, we need to have 10 victory points. Right now, if you're paying attention, we have a whopping 0 command points. But that's okay. Like, we're victory points. We're getting there. You know, I've got some reinforcements on the way. We're going to start pushing into this town and start taking over some of these victory point locations. What I can say now, doing basic math, is simply having that 1 victory point location is not going to be enough. So I'm definitely going to have to at least get that one, which I'm not too far from now. So that's good. But so is the same with the enemy. So this is going to start getting exciting. All right. So supply phase is now over for the enemy. We go to round 2. Round 2 start. All right. I just watched Mortal Kombat the other day, so that's, if you picked up on the reference there. Okay. So I get 3 cubes. And immediately, man, I'm not exactly sure the best approach here because part of me wants to just move immediately. So once you capture a space, you don't need to stay on it to keep control of it. Obviously, if an enemy then moves into it, they can take control of it. But these guys can move on with their lives and not have to worry about staying there. So I kind of just say, what the heck, let's move them right into this other spawn. So I'm going to go 1, 2, and then 3. Now, I think they need to have, so first of all, that's 3 command cubes used. And I think they do have to have line of sight also to the AI. It's not simply just being within 2 spaces. Something that I'm going to have to confirm right now. Can do this together. All right. Help me find where it talks about revealing the enemy. It's like a children's show. Where does it say revealing? Do you see it? Revealing. All right. Okay. So if an AI unit comes within sight of 2 or more player units at the same time, use reading order. Okay. When an AI unit enters visible range of your units, immediately reveal. So visible, I think, implies within 2 and visible, which that building, as you can imagine, does block these infantry from seeing the enemy green token. Also, let's get these off the board. Apologize for not having done that. Okay, so that's my turn. I use up my 3 cubes for the turn, so play goes back to the enemy. And as always, we first draw a card for the AI to see what they do, what their behavior will be. First action, general advance. So 2 green units on the board. Which one is chosen? And green unit not on a control point. So this unit's on a control point. And the funny thing is, I think they updated this to not on a control point that they control in the errata. And then, so that obviously does change things, as you can already see. Because that's technically on a control point. So this unit normally wouldn't even be considered. But I think the rules that they updated these green cards so that they now say green unit not on a control point that not on a AI controlled point, which this is AI controlled. So that unit is also, so both those units, what I'm trying to get at are options, and then closest to a victory point, which one, so both are equally close. And then we go reading order, which reading order is left to right, left to right, left to right. It's actually this one. That one gets chosen and then move towards the nearest victory point, which of course is right here. And so it goes 1, 2. So it uses 2 points and it sits there. It's accomplished its mission for the day. Now we move on to the next action, and this time we actually get to look at it, since we now do have a yellow unit on the board. So it's a yellow sword symbol. So we look at our AI instruction cards to see what yellow sword means, and it says it's a yellow assault. Okay, unrevealed yellow unit, which is definitely the case there. Priorities, close. Okay, so we know what unit. We don't have to worry about all this stuff because there's only one yellow unit on the board. Okay, we move on to the second part. Moves to nearest enemy unit and closest. So that's pretty self-explanatory. It goes there, or it tries to target. It tries to get close to that unit. Now, one thing about the yellow units, which I think is the case all the time, at least a majority of the time, is they have what's called speed boost or something like that. I'm making things up, but they get this speed die thing, which basically is a free command cube of movement. that they can just spend for free to give them just one space of movement right away. So they always start with using that before they would even use a command cube. And then now he still has one command cube left to spend. And again, I'm trying to get him close to there. I think this is the faster approach between, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So yeah, this road's I think faster. So they get to move this space for free because of their speed die, and then they do have to spend their command cube to move in there. And now the enemy is done because they've spent 3 command cubes for this turn, and they're done. So it comes back to me. All right, so I have options here. Obviously, I'm going to want to get this. I'm going to want to get this infantry unit to this victory spawn flag. I want to get this mortar crew involved too. So I'm realizing I have almost more units than I can do stuff with. Well, for starters, I'm going to move this guy it only needs 2 spaces. So 1, 2. So that's just 2 of my 3 command cubes I get this round. And then I think it only makes sense to try to get this Jeep involved. And just like the enemy... Oops, that was almost really bad. Just like with the enemy... the enemy yellow unit, my Jeep gets a speed die, so they get to place that next to themselves to show that they have 1 free movement, and then for their next space, I do have to use the 3rd and final command cube I have for this turn. So they're done. And then turn goes back to the enemy player. Enemy AI, they draw a card. This time Cavalry Assault, which is a yellow sword again. Which is, if you remember, a yellow assault. And still unrevealed, so that's the only option. And they move to nearest enemy unit. So they have they only get to use their speed die once for the whole round. So they can't continue to use that round after round. So they basically can move up to 2 more cubes worth of movement. I just have to figure out which space that would be. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, they can only move 2. So it's either 1, 2 or 1, 2. And I think it's this one because of reading order. Each is equally... Yeah, I think each is technically equally available, so then reading order would put this one first. So they go there, and it does make sense that they kind of would, since that's a resource space. So that's 2 of the 3 cubes they get to spend this turn. So then we do move on to the next action on the action card, which is this green shield symbol. So let's go ahead and take a peek-see at what the green shield symbol is. Alright, green unit that is not on a player-controlled or neutral control point, which is now just that one. And closest, so we already know what unit we're using, so we don't have to worry about anymore about this part. Alright, move on to the second. Move towards the nearest control point AI does not control and has no units on. Priorities, victory points, and then reading order. So this is interesting because move towards the nearest control point AI does not control and has no units on. Oh, yeah, AI does not control. So it's going to move towards that space. Since that's the nearest control point that it does not control and does not... I was reading it that there's just no units on it, period, but it's no enemy units on. So it's going to go in the building, I guess, which only, I think, costs 1 resource. And that's funny because, I have these extra train pack 1. It almost doesn't, it doesn't seem like that really fits in there well. I think they go in buildings though. I would assume enemies can go in buildings. Something I'm gonna have to look up because I don't think the rules really talk about that. We'll assume they can go in the building. And then that's as close as I can get because, of course, my units are in the space and you can't have more than one unit in the space. So that would be that action. And then we move down to the third action, which is a blue unit, which they don't have on the board. So then that action is skipped. Now it goes back to me. Again, I start with 3 cubes. And I definitely want to get this Jeep involved in this action up here. So they still have 2 cubes of movement left that I can spend. So I'll go ahead and do that. And finally, I'll just move up my mortar crew with my remaining cube. Since they are unpacked, or since they are packed, they can move. But if they were packed, meaning the check mark, if they were unpacked, if they were unpacked, meaning there was a check mark, I would first have to spend a cube just to unpack them. But they were already unpacked. They already were packed, so I didn't have to do that. So I used up my 3 cubes. It goes back to the enemy, but I doubt the enemy can really do much. So blue we ignore because there's no blue units. Green, technically both those units still have a potential to use another cube, and its control point. Green unit not on a control point. So this unit's not on a control point. Move towards the nearest victory point. So that's that unit wouldn't even do anything that unit. So then you basically would, the AI just kind of skips their action card, which means their turn's done, and then the whole round is now over. Okay. So now, oh crap! One thing I forgot. Once this got into the building, it does reveal. Oh my gosh. This is not a good situation. Okay, so I apologize that I didn't really pay attention to this, but once that unit moved in, it's now within 2 spaces, or it's within 2 spaces of this unit, and now in line of sight. So I would immediately flip it over, and now we get to see what it is. Well, it turns out it's a nasty-looking MG42 team that's now in this nice position on the top of a building. But not only that, it comes with this flip effect, which is pinned. So that means that squad is now pinned, which is denoted by the pin die here, which means that they're kind of useless. They don't really do anything right now. They can't really do anything, so not surprisingly. So that's not good, but that's the reality of the situation. So kudos to the AI for pulling that off. But I should have done that before we actually got to the damage phase. Now we're at the damage part of the turn. So pinned units I don't think get to fire. Then we look at all other units that are within range, and that could attack another unit. So these guys are out of range. These guys technically could shoot 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so they're not in range. These guys obviously aren't in range. These guys would have been in range to this unit, but they're pinned, so they don't get to fight. And then these guys are out of the picture still. And then the Jeep is also out of the picture because their range is only 2, and they're 1, 2, 3 from shooting that German machine gun unit. So, but the German machine gun unit is within range of that infantry unit, and they get to assign their damage is a infantry. And what that means is when you're assigning damage to a unit, the top is the type of damage the attacking unit does, which in this case is an infantry unit because that's the symbol that the MG42 unit has. And then the defending unit is on the left, so the defense type of the unit is on the left, and in this case, a green infantry unit is, or an infantry unit is a green heart. So what that means is there's no defense die opportunity for the defending unit. They simply just absorb a hit. And that's what's going to happen. So they lose an infantry figure. Or they lose 1 health, which is represented by taking out an infantry figure. So bye-bye, Corporal Johnson. Your family will miss you. So that would be the conclusion of damage. Pinned effects. That's what I actually have to look up to understand when these actually get removed. And now I don't think they can capture that point because they're pinned. So let me figure that out now. So when we look at the round sequence here, inflict damage, experience and victory points, there's nothing here. There's nothing to be gained. So supply phase, can capture control points. So for sure, the enemy's controlling 2 more. Well, sorry. I think the enemy AI only captures control points with green units. And then I get to capture this 1 victory point here to the left. And I want to check this to be 100% sure. I will assume you can't capture a command point if you're pinned. A pinned unit cannot deal damage, capture control points. Alright. So, that's that. So, although I have this unit in the command space, in the command point, they're pinned, so I unfortunately can't capture that. And then we move on to the adjust incomes. So I did add a victory point space, or victory point control point. So I now get 1 income per round for victory points. And then otherwise, no other changes. So we simply just rake in our resources. So 2 manpower, 1 ammunitions, 2 fuel, and then 1 point for victory. So at my first victory point, I'm at least somewhat on the way to victory. And then the enemy does their spawning of a... Is that blue? They get to spawn 1 blue token, which goes there. Okay. And now I would purchase units. And I'm at the point where I think upgrading makes more sense because as you probably, as what I've just realized, and what maybe you guys have as well, when you have more units on the board, it doesn't really help you because you can only do so much every round anyway because you only have the 9 cubes total. So adding units doesn't necessarily help. So upgrading, though, would be nice, which... I'm trying to see if it's even worth upgrading. Any of my infantry units. The mortar team, so this basically means they get another, they either do 2 infantry damage a turn or can now do a tank damage as well as infantry per turn, which would be nice to make them a little more versatile. And I don't know if I can do that to a pinned unit, though. That's what I'm not sure of. I mean, I kind of want to just upgrade that unit since they're out there. The mortar team, I can upgrade with 4 to make them fast so they can move more, which sounds pretty nice right now. So I'm tempted to do that. just so that they have a better chance of getting in range for the next turn. And the Jeep doesn't seem to have any kind of upgrade option, period. I also could just build my next set of barracks to get more units, more unit options, which gives me a machine gun unit, an anti-tank gun, and the ability to bring in a tank, and the ability to make tanks. But like I just said, right now my issue isn't so much not having enough units on the map as it is actually taking advantage of the units that I do have on the map. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just pay the 4 resources to give that infantry the speed ability, which is, I guess, denoted by that now on their base. So the mortar crew now has speed, extra speed. And man, I don't think it's worth me buying anything else at this point. Like, it's just, I'm not going to be able to really move it up into the action. Well, I shouldn't say that, because this unit's not going to have to move. It could be worth trying to get... I like the idea of tanks, because tanks sound really cool, so I want to get tanks. Which means I have to buy this anyway. So I'm just going to do that. So it's 1 manpower, 3 fuel to get my company command post. What did I literally just say? 1 manpower, 3 fuel. 1 manpower, 3 fuel. So now I can make anything from that. The tank is 3 fuel, or no, 3 manpower, 2 fuel. So I can't make a tank. I can't make the anti-tank gun, and I can't make the MG team either. So I can't actually make anything, but at least now in the future I might be able to, and that'll be cool. Okay, so my supply phase is done. We added the enemy unit onto the board. So that's the end of round 2. And round 3, fight. Okay, so we're about to start round 3. First things first, I want to clean up the board a little bit here. So I want to make some clarifications about the pinning rules. So first of all, I'm playing with the advanced rule pinning rules, which means typically in basic rules, a unit that can pin, which essentially is a machine gun crew, like this MG42. In basic rules, you can just pick 1 unit to pin per round. But in the advanced rules, a machine gun crew has essentially a field of fire where every unit in that field of fire is essentially pinned if they're an infantry unit. And that also adds in the advanced rules field of fire, which in the basic rules there's nothing about field of fire, but in advanced rules there is. And that's I'm pretty sure why. I'm going to assume why they have this arrow on the token for the machine gun crew, or for the German machine gun group, so you use to denote which direction the machine gun crew is facing. So I'm going to say they're facing this hex line, which I think it doesn't really talk about this in the rules. Again, one thing that's missing, like how do you know where to face the enemy once you flip it over? In this case, I think it's self-explanatory that they're going to be facing, the enemy that's right in front of them. But nonetheless, that also means that's what you're using to determine what their field of fire would be, which I don't really have a good way of explaining it other than showing it here. So the field of fire pattern looks like this. So in this case, it would be these 2, these 3, these ones are all within the field of fire. Except I think, but one thing to point out is this building doesn't include its pinning effect, because you can't be pinned when in a building. So this would be a strategic option for me to try to get into, so I can do house-to-house combat and still actually not be pinned. But right now, these units are pinned. Oh, and that's the other thing about pinning that's different between, or how the pinning rules differ between basic and advanced, is in basic, this goes away at the end of the round. The pinning effect goes away at the end of the round, but in advanced, the pinning effect stays on the unit until the source of the pin is either eliminated or packs up and leaves, or finally I decide to retreat this unit. And retreating is an option that I have for a unit during my maneuver phase, in which I just say I'm going to have them retreat. They are able to get rid of their pin effect, and then it turns to a retreat. And that means that they're kind of at that point automated, in that they simply go directly back to the reinforcement spawn point here. And once they get back here, then the retreat status goes away, and they're back to normal. But I'm already seeing the benefit of that type of decision, because as it stands right now, this unit doesn't help me control this spawn point. I know they're not going to get rid of this pin anytime soon, unless I do something with this MG crew, this machine gun crew. And they're going to just take that space up, because you can't have more than one unit in the same space. So even though this Jeep is a unit that can also capture resource points designated by this ability. So green units always can control resource points. Yellow units can, if they have the capture point ability. That Jeep's not going to be able to get onto that space unless this unit wasn't there. So it does beg the question, do I want to just have them retreat to free that space up so I can at least capture it with the Jeep? And the Jeep, by the way, cannot be pinned by enemy machine gun crews, because machine gun crews only pin green units, which the Jeep is a yellow unit. But at the same time, I do like having the extra manpower there in the event I am able to get rid of that machine gun crew. So already some interesting decisions to be made, which is cool. Okay, I felt like there was another aspect of the game that I wanted to quick touch on before we got into round 3, but I'm kind of blanking. Unit moving into a building must stop, by the way. So that, I think, does apply to the AI opponent, or AI player, which didn't really impact anything. I just looked that up recently. So I think we're good to go. Which means I get to start my turn with 3 command cubes, and already I know I want this Jeep to get within range of that machine gun crew. Question is, do I want them in a position on this side of the river, or keep them on the left side? Because this unit is coming up, and we don't know what that is yet, so it's a little scary to me. But I like having more units on this side of the river to kind of build up a defensive position. Alright, I'm going to try that. I'm going to move them 1 here using their fast ability, then 2, which they can move through an allied or maybe enemy occupied area, and then 3. Alright, and I still have 1 more cube that they could still use to move, but that's fine for me right now. In terms of location, they're able to attack the machine gun crew, also in range of, or ready to potentially fend off that yellow unit that's probably going to be coming up here soon. So I have 1 more cube, and I'm going to use that to just move up my mortar crew, who I really want to get in range of this building as well, so they can start dropping down mortars, which they need. They're range 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. So oh, what am I doing? I forgot they have their fast ability now, which is I didn't really actually do the math on this, but I think it's actually going to work out perfectly. So we'll say they use their speed ability for that first space, and then they use the last cube to move in there. So they still have 2 cubes worth of movement, which I think I'm going to need if I want to actually get them involved in the fight. So I've used up my cubes. Time for the enemy to take their turn, and it's a tactical advance, starting with the green AI instruction card, which I need to go find quick because I'm always misplacing the various components of this game. Okay. So, green control point. Green unit that is not on a player controlled or neutral control point. So, that would be either of the 2 green units on the map. Closest to base. So, I'm going to assume closest to base is closest to that space, which, because again, base is no longer a valid term anymore. And then reading order. So, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for that unit. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this unit's definitely closer to base. So that's the unit that's going to get this action. And the action is move towards the nearest control point AI does not control and has no units on. That's also pretty simple because the only option really is this one, which they don't control, and they have no units on. So they're going to move there, and they have 3 command cubes to use, which they'll use all 3. 1. Oh, this will be interesting. 2. And now, because once it moves into this space, it will be within 2 spaces of my Jeep, so I will get to flip it. And not surprisingly, it's another mortar crew, machine gun crew, that normally would pin the unit that just revealed it, if this unit had been an infantry, which it's not, which is also maybe another good reason to scout with your Jeeps, which actually I did think I heard somewhere, so now it's making sense to me. So I don't have to worry about the pinning effect, but we do have another machine gun crew that I'm going to say is facing this direction. So again, it has a line of sight or a field of fire that's going to extend, the areas and including and to the left and right of the line here, just for visual. So that's no fun. All right, so we don't even need to worry about the other 2 actions that they have on this card because they've used up their 3 cubes on that unit right there. So AI player's done. Back to me. Okay. 3 cubes. And let's get this mortar crew in range. You know what? So it takes 1 to unpack. And they only have 2 more that I can place. So if I put it here, then it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So I'll just go ahead and it doesn't really matter, but yeah, I'll put it there for 1, and then I will unpack it for my last cube for that unit can take. So they're done. But now they will be ready to shoot at that mortar crew. And they don't actually need line of sight for the unit they're attacking if they can get sight from a ally, which can be a pinned unit. So what I'm trying to get at is this unit can spot for my mortar crew, but I think in this case the mortar crew also has a line of sight on their own. Anyway, and so I have 1 more cube left that I will use on this infantry unit to get them I could try to just use them to get easy, try to go for some easy pickings over here on these two control points, which is tempting, but it's like, man, do I need that fighting power over here instead, because things are starting to really heat up, and this unit's, I feel bad for, Corporal Johnson passed away in the last turn. These other units look like they're going to be taking a beating soon, so having some reinforcements might be really helpful. And at the end of the day, I don't really need munitions or manpower. I need victory points. So, okay. I think I have to move them towards this direction to get them in the fight. And then that's my third and final cube for my turn. So we go back to the AI player and a general advance. Starting with the green victory point. Okay, so for green victory point, the only option right now is that green machine gun crew. And then move towards the nearest victory point, which they're not going to move. So essentially this first action gets ignored, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that. Second action is yellow unit, which is the sword, which is yellow sword, yellow assault, unrevealed yellow unit, which we have right there, and then move to nearest enemy unit. Okay, we have two options. Well, it doesn't matter because he's going to be close to both, or next to both. So he'll go, so technically again, first space would be with the speed die that also again reveals it. And what I don't know is if I get a choice on what unit gets to reveal it, because in this case it would matter because it does have the pin ability. And let's see if these rules actually take that into account, that you sometimes have a choice in terms of which units reveal the enemy unit. Okay, perfect. So, when an enemy visible, flip it. Okay, reveal. If an enemy has the unit has a reveal action. When an AI unit is revealed, the player unit that revealed it suffers the effects of the reveal action. Okay, and then if it comes within a side of two or more, at the same time, use reading order to determine which player unit is targeted. Oh my good god. Well, you know what? It doesn't matter. It's already pinned. You can't be pinned twice. So technically this unit then, because of reading order, revealed the enemy unit, which would have caused it to get pinned, but it is already pinned. So actually, I don't think that matters. So that's fine, actually. And then it still would get to move another. The action is continue moving, moves to nearest enemy unit, so it will move again. So it's right in the thick of things. And then we'll stop. Okay, so that was only technically one command cube, so that means the blue action then will still kick off this turn for the AI, which is called Blue Barrage. Blue unit, only one blue unit, so that's simple. And then moves towards a hex that is 4 hexes away from the nearest enemy unit. Nearest enemy unit is, I think, either of these. I'm not... Oh, okay, fine, I'll count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8. 7, 8, yeah. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7, yeah. So it will take this path, I think, to this space, essentially. Yeah. So, and it moves towards the hex. Oh yeah, so it has 2 cubes to spend. So 1, 2. And then that enemy's done. And something worth noting. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, it's going to be in range. So these units have a range of 4. So I think they're going to be attacking this turn. But I'll have to do a little rule referencing when that happens. Okay, so my last turn of the round. 3 cubes. I think you guys already know what I'm trying to do here. Move in some more reinforcements. So this unit's going to go 1, 2. And then, I have one more cube here. But, yeah, I can't really use it anymore. So we'll put this aside, and I'm starting to think I maybe should have retreated with that unit. I don't know. Man, this is really messy. So we move on now to damage. So damage is interesting because this unit's going to have technically 2 options. Then because the machine gun here can attack either the infantry or the jeep. Oh, what am I doing? You guys are like, no, they still have one more turn left. You're right. But we can... Oh, yeah, okay, so let's see what the yellow would do. Yellow technically shouldn't probably do anything, but let's see. It's a yellow shield. It still technically has 2 cubes that it can do something with. Why did I miss that? Oh, yeah, okay. Yellow unit that is not on a neutral or player controlled. Okay, move towards the nearest control point the AI does not control. So it's, yeah, obviously this unit would try to get to there, and it's already there. So yeah, yellow doesn't have, the yellow unit does not move, and then the other next action is the blue unit, which does have one more cube to move with. So that guy's coming in, which is scary. Okay. Now we're done with the enemy AI turn, their last turn of the round, so we move into damage. Alright. So what I was trying to say earlier is this machine gun crew has technically 2 targets, infantry and that jeep, but there is a card that will tell you priority. Oops. It's none of those, actually. It's one of these ones. There's a card that will tell you a target selection. Alright, so damage type, not surprisingly, it goes after the green guy. So 1 infantry will take damage, and technically it doesn't die. Damage is simultaneous in this game, so we'll just prepare that unit to be dead from that unit. And so that machine gun's done. Okay, so now we can move on to the jeep. Okay, so for the jeep, not surprisingly, or not sure if you can see that, this jeep actually has, or armored car, I should say. I'm sure the Germans don't want me saying jeep, or the Americans don't want me calling it jeep, or both. But anyway, they have 2 infantry symbols, so it does 2 damage to an infantry unit. And therefore, again, since damage type is infantry, even though it could also attack this jeep, this is a yellow unit, so it will again attack that green battered infantry. So then we have Private Johnson or no, not Private. We'll say Private Anderson and Private Smith and Private Johannesburg all just died. So, and they won't be able to fight back, unfortunately. So hopefully they get Purple Hearts or some sort of accommodation for their efforts or whatever. So these 2 units now have basically completed their damage. We move on to this other German machine crew. Now, they have a infantry damage as well, like the other German machine gun crew. But they don't have any infantry in their range of fire, which is 2. So they will attack this jeep, which is not the ideal target for them, because when we look at the damage chart, when you're doing infantry against a yellow, you do get to do a cover save, which means that it's unlike those other attacks, which have always been automatic um, automatic casualties for the infantry unit. In this case, I actually get to roll a defense die. And since this is the first time I'm doing it, I actually don't know exactly how that works again. And advanced rules, I don't know. I think advanced rules only change damage if infantry. Okay, the shield icon means the defending unit gets to roll all dice with that damage type assigned to it as defense dice. Well, let's go to basic rules. And I know this is not as complicated as I'm making it being. So defense rolls. It rolls down die to see if it blocks 1 point of damage. Green and black symbols are a success and the damage is reduced by 1. The red symbol is a fail. So I have a 66% chance that I succeed. Great. So red is bad. That makes sense? Alright, finally. A die roll. So far no die rolls, which is interesting. I can't say that doesn't make me a little happy. That doesn't make me happy, actually. Unfortunately, he will take a point of damage. And because it's apparently a wimpy vehicle, because this armored car has 3, my vehicle only gets 2 points of damage, denoted on their unit car, whatever here. They take that damage and now only have 1 hit left. So next we move on to that blue unit. Oh, well, this unit would get to attack. And for sure, oh yeah, okay. This is the interesting choice because the whole point of me moving this Jeep up here was to try to take out that machine gun crew. So that would unpin the units there, which are now dead, so it kind of doesn't matter. But let's do it anyway because that unit's scary. So I only get to do 1 damage against infantry. Normally, then you're probably saying, "Oh, okay, so you get to they immediately take a point of damage," but they're in a building, and because they're in a building, the rules will tell me. I think they get 2 defensive die. Heavy cover, which is in this case a building. At least 1 attack must intersect. Yeah, determine. So they're gonna roll 2 defense die, which almost makes it seem worthless because the odds that I get 2 fails, which is, I mean, now I'm looking for fails. Obviously, seems actually kind of okay. It's not even worth it, right? Like, what are the odds that both of these are red? 33. You can do the math. So okay, screw it. Jeep's gonna just go for this MG crew, which automatically takes a point of damage because they don't have cover in that space, and it's hard to see, but there are these yellow highlights around some of the hexes, and if my attack actually crossed a yellow line for whatever reason, then they would actually get light cover, but that's not the case. So they take a point of damage, and normally in the normal game, I think that gets me a point of experience, but again, the advanced rules, or the solo rules, say that I only get experience from destroying enemy units. Let me just double check this. Oh my gosh. I swear it talks about this. The standard way to play is explained in the core rulebooks each time. Okay, so players do not gain victory points for just victory points, yeah. Okay. I'm talking about experience points. Gosh, I'm confusing myself here. I swear, maybe it's the beginning. Like, this rule book is not ideal in some cases, as you can tell, because I don't. Okay, there we go. It is at the front. We do not gain victory points for killing the AI units, only from controlling victory point objective. Oh, players only collect experience when killing an AI unit. That's all I wanted to find. All right, so I confirm that. So it's blue unit time, and then I'm going to have to, sorry guys, I'm going to have to reference the solo book again, because like I said, blue units are unique. They have their only one action to move 4 spaces away. And then blue units are artillery or long range units and always have a range 4. While player units require sight to attack another unit, the blue AI units may attack any unit in their 4 range. At the beginning of the damage phase, if a blue unit is within 4 of an enemy, it is revealed and remains revealed till the end of the damage phase. The player may attack these revealed blue units without having sight. So, like it said, it flips. It turns out to be a veteran mortar team. Oh my god. Okay, so mortar team does 2 points of high explosive damage. And let's look at target priority. So technically it can shoot 1, 2, 3, 4, or this 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it can shoot either the infantry or the jeep. And we look at target selection. So if it's high explosive, it's first going to go after purple, which I don't have, then green, which I do have, then red, then yellow. Now, we're going to game the system as you might think to yourself, why would it go after the unit that's already destroyed? Well, that's a great point. It shouldn't. I think it would. If the rules ever get rewritten, it's going to go after the jeep. There's going to be probably a rule that says, like, if one of your units already has enough damage where it's dead, like, the enemy's not going to care about attacking it. As written, the sole rules don't talk about that. They just you follow target selection, and then if there's a tie here, then they give you how to break priorities, but it doesn't say anything about if a unit's already basically destroyed and another unit would still attack that destroyed unit. Is there a problem with that? So, okay, it basically does extra damage then to the that infantry unit, and in that case, high explosive damage against. Am I saying it right? Yeah, it's high explosive. High explosive also would not give any kind of cover. Doesn't allow the unit to roll any cover die, so they would just take 2 more points of damage, which they can't. Okay, and then now it's my mortar crew's turn. Now my mortar crew can attack the building. And they have just a single, gosh. So they have just a single point of damage, and it's like, I'm starting to lose faith in being able to win this game. So, normally, HE against an infantry, as we just talked about, means no cover, but they are in a building, and now I need to double check if being in a building allows you to so it's now variable and can miss, hit, or crit. Okay, so first of all then, this technically would have had, they actually would have had roll die for those, but we won't do that because like I said, it wouldn't matter that unit's taking enough casualties. And then once all damage time, players go through each defending unit and apply it. So basically what it's saying is first I roll. So first I would roll to see if I actually hit with my HE attack. So we'll just do that first. I get to roll 1 die. I want obviously green because that's 2 damage. I got black, so it's just 1 point of potential damage. Now what I need to figure out is, do they get to still roll? Does the building protect? Because for some reason I'm saying... For some reason I feel like HE gets to ignore cover. Now I'm going back to the base. This is the problem when you have all these rule books. Because it doesn't tell you the full story in one. Let's just see if it... There is a reference. Talks about high explosive. I'm going to say that the building then still provides cover. So in this case, I'm rolling now 2 die. Of defense for that MG crew. Oh, there we go. That's what I was looking for. Buildings do not provide cover against flame damage. Alright, well, this is high explosive damage and not flame, so I'm pretty sure they do get their 2 defense dice. And fail and a success. So they succeed in blocking that one. The only thing that I can say that did happen, if we want to be excited about something, is building damage. Buildings have 4 health unless otherwise specified, and it is tracked using pip dice. Buildings only take damage from HE when a unit inside a building is attacked. Any HE and flame damage is also applied to the building's health, regardless of the unit's defense rolls. So I do a point of damage to the building, which, you know, at the very least is almost more, makes me feel better. It's like, okay, if I can't blow up this unit, maybe I can blow up the building. And that's the what that slots for, so, you know, yeah, it's like, okay, this clearly wasn't intended to even be used with a solo game, but that's what I'm dealing with. So now we're all done with every unit's attacked. This unit now goes back to sleeping because, as it said in the rules, it's after damage phase, it does flip back until it's within two sight of one of my units. This unit gets taken away. They're all dead. Poor guys. I feel like I let them down. I probably definitely could have strategized that better, but I'm learning. This is the first time I play this game. And, yeah, this isn't looking good. They have a lot of full strength dudes right up here. I mean, these guys still have 2 points of damage to take, and these are 3, and these are 3. So, okay. Now we move on to supply. Which, in this case, this gets taken over by that MG crew. And if in case you're wondering, no, enemies don't have to worry about packing up. So, this MG crew just gets to move however they want, like they aren't a weapons team, like I have to worry about. And then no new captured things for me. So in terms of updating income, I don't think I have to adjust anything. So then I just collect. I collect 2 manpower, so I have 3. I collect 1 ammunition, so I'm at 3. 2 fuel, so I'm at 5. And 1 victory point, because I still got my victory point, control point, way over there. So, but it's still bad. This is not good. I don't really know how I'm going to actually pull this off at this point. Okay, so now in terms of spending, like how do I, purchase units and upgrades. So upgrade wise, my one mortar crew's already upgraded with its speed, so there's nothing there. The infantry, they can take for 4 I don't even have 4K, can't do that. And I don't have the Jeep can't be upgraded. All right, so can I even make anything? I do have enough for a tank, and I think I need a tank. Yeah, I need to get. I'm buying a tank. Like, there's just no. It's not. The Greyhound looks like a pretty mild-mannered tank, but it's definitely better than nothing. And that costs me 3 manpower. I'm actually really excited about this tank. I feel like this tank is destined to accomplish great things. I just feel it. Okay, so 3 manpower gone, 2 fuel gone, and it does get a speed die. Let's go over what it does in case you guys are wondering. Nick, tell us what is so great about this tank. Well, my bar is pretty low right now, so this actually can do 2 damage of infantry opposed to 1 like all my other units. But at least has an upgrade. Oh, I'm going to do that. I think that, I don't even know what that actually means. I'm going to have to look that up. It must give it a point of HE damage. So yeah, I'm going to do that. So it also gets this now. Okay, cool. You can upgrade when you spawn a unit. So, range of 2, nothing special there. 3 health, nothing special there. It's fast though, which is going to help me get it up to the front lines. And then because of the upgrade I just gave it, it does have now also a point of high explosive damage, which I think will come in handy here. So. That's my supply phase, and then for the enemy, they move up, and thankfully they get to add 2 units because they have so few right now as it is. They need 2 more reinforcements. So a yellow and a green come onto the board. And I don't even know if it matters which one goes where. The yellow is shown first, but something that maybe doesn't matter, maybe does. And this is going to be their last phase 1 turn, and then they're in phase 2, which means more command points per turn for a total of 12. Like, geez, this escalated very quickly. Okay, end of round 3, guys. It's going to get spicy, so I'm going to quick pause here. Okay, so time to clean up the board. And one thing that I think is worth mentioning that I haven't mentioned yet is the game does explain that you can take out the experienced AI units if you want to have a slightly easier gameplay experience. And I guess, I'm playing with them right now, since this example of this MG42 team has the star at the top to designate their experienced or veteran type unit. So looking back on it, maybe I should have not played with the starred units, because I'm realizing that maybe making the game a little harder on me. This armored car, however, isn't a starred unit, but regardless, I just wanted to mention that because I only just realized it myself recently. Okay. So I think there's another cube there. I think now we're all ready to start the next round. I feel like I'm forgetting something, but I'll think of it later then. Oh, maybe that there is rules on how the AI points after it's flipped over, in that let me once again go through the revealing units. No, actually, I don't think it does address the arrow in the rule book. So never mind, it doesn't talk about that. All right. So I get my 3 command cubes, command points to spend. Obviously, a big part of this round is going to be me getting my, what's it called again? My Greyhound into the front, up to the front line as best as possible. This Jeep is probably a casualty of war at this point, so not a lot he's going to be able to do. All things considered. But with that said, we'll go ahead and start moving my Greyhound up. Oh, it does have a speed die too. So the Greyhound has the explosion upgrade, which I paid for, but does have speed as well. So first, I'll move it there with the speed die. Then I will spend one of my cubes to move it there. Another cube to get it here. And I guess a third cube to get it there. And that'll be the Greyhound's turns. So now we do the AI. And they get defensive maneuvers. Interesting. Some new options for actions. And the first is a green turret, which says green unit closest to unoccupied building. I guess that'd be these guys. Move towards into the nearest unoccupied building. Well,
unit at the top also would be green unit closest to unoccupied buildings. So technically that green unit is only one space away, or is adjacent, so I think it goes to that unit. So that was simple enough. Second action is again the blue barrage, which just basically means move towards a hex size 4 away from the nearest enemy unit. So still it's the Jeep 1, 2, 3, 4. So they are already where they need to be. So we can ignore that action. And then finally the yellow flag, which let's see what that is. Yellow retreat. Damaged yellow unit. And obviously that unit at the top, the yellow unit we have, oh no, we have this yellow unit too. But neither of the two yellow units on the board have been damaged yet. So there's no need, obviously, for either of those to retreat. So then we can just end the AI turn, and that does mean that they would forfeit 2 of their command points. But they don't really need them because a lot of their units are where they would want them to be at this point anyway. So moving back to my turn with 3 command points. Obviously it'd be great if I could get that Greyhound further than it is, but I can't. And this is where it's a little bit of I feel like moving the... So, as mentioned here, the Jeep, although a vehicle, is able to capture control points. So I think moving the Jeep into this control point still makes sense, even though it only has 1 health left before it's kaput. But the alternative is trying to get the this infantry unit into the control point space. However, the pinning rules state that essentially once I move this infantry unit within the firing arc of this machine gun crew, so essentially once I move this infantry unit here, this unit would become pinned, which then kind of makes that unit almost useless for me. Which there's no real reason to do that voluntarily. If I move them into the building, great. Now I got to... I swear I saw buildings... somewhere buildings prevent you from having to become pinned. And of course, I once again have to look this up. So I apologize for that. It talks about cover in the advanced rulebook. Pinning, machine gun, 1 infantry. Okay, so not there. Let's try the basic rulebook. Because cover in buildings. Don't cover again. Transport. I don't want to just assume. Pinning, negative. Units and buildings cannot be pinned. Okay, so that's what I was looking for. I found the rule. So my options are I could just move that infantry into the building, and then that actually would give it line of sight in range to try to shoot at that machine gun crew. Or I could take this infantry unit and try to capture the munitions control point. Boy, both are interesting options. Man, I feel like I should just go for the munitions depot, because if I attack, this unit is only going to get a single die, and it's going to this unit's going to have 2 cover rolls against that single attack. Oh no, it's not. That's not how it works. It's key. I think it's key. Yeah, but I may have actually done the damage rules wrong. Because I don't think you defend against each attack individually, which I may have done previously. So it could be worth trying to just actually get them up here instead, which would have been 1, 2. So 2 to get them into the building up there. And then I still have 1 left. And part of me wants to try to get this mortar crew then over there, which means I'd have to pack them for 1, 2, 3. Oh, but they have speed too. So 1 for unpack. And then speed for 1. Get them in here, 2, 3. I think I can do that. So let's go ahead and unpack. Or pack up. Sorry, I get those. I always say those incorrectly. So I pack up my mortar crew. And now I'm out of cubes, so it's the enemy's turn. Cavalry assault. So first is a yellow sword. Unrevealed yellow unit, which we only have 1, so it's the top of the board there, and moves to nearest enemy unit, which I believe is definitely that armored car, or I'm sorry, the Jeep for us. And again, they get a speed die for their first point of movement, so 1, and then 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2. So it's still outside of range 2, so I don't flip it yet, and that's the enemy. That's the whole turn for the AI, since they now have no command points left. Okay, and moving back to my turn. So I want to move my packed up mortar crew there for free with their speed die. Another cube to get them into that space, and then my last cube to unpack. So now they typically wouldn't have line of sight from this space, but this unit can spot for them, and actually the Jeep also spots. So because of that, even though that building would be blocking their line of sight clearly to that enemy machine gun crew, they have 2 different units that are currently spotting, so that's great. And I have 1 no, wait. I shouldn't have a cube left. Or maybe I do. Well, regardless, I was going to spend the speed die or I guess my remaining cube to move this Jeep, the damaged Jeep, into the control point, and the hope somehow it survives. We'll see. So there's a lot of things around it. Okay, and then we go to the final AI turn, covering fire. So the first is that retreat for the yellow unit, which it's not going to do because there's no damaged yellow unit, so we skip that. Move to the green victory point. So unit not in a control point, closest to a victory point, and so I think these guys will move. So the updated rules, I think, specifically call it victory point, and not victory control point, not just normal control point. So as it's written right now, this unit wouldn't be moving. But because I will use the latest edition of this card, which says that it would move, I will move it, which would put it 1, 2. Oh, yeah, okay. Also, once this Jeep had moved out of visibility of this machine gun crew, it would have flipped this unit back. So I should... Let's back up. So that Jeep moved away. Now this unit's more than 2 spaces out of away from the nearest human unit, or one the closest unit of on my side. So it goes back to being unrevealed. Then to complete this action, it will move here, which reveals it, which would activate any revealing effects, which it has pinned. But because my Jeep can't be pinned, it just gets ignored. So then it will move there for another command point, and now it can't move any closer. And then that's the green action, and then we have the barrage again, which is move. So it's within 4, which 1, 2, 3, 4, which it's still within 4. The blue unit is. So that means the AI will sacrifice their remaining command point. And so we move on to damage. So with damage this time around, I'm going to try to be a little more careful how I do this. My mortar crew will inflict 1 1 point of why am I blanking on this? HE damage. And then my Jeep will do, I think, just 1 point of normal damage. Or sorry, infantry damage. And then I'm also going to have this unit get in the fight, and they would provide 1 point of just regular damage. Okay. So though that's all the damage my units are potentially able to assign because my tank is not within range of anything. Okay, for the enemy, this armored car would prioritize, as if you remember, it would prioritize attacking a green unit because it's got the infantry damage type, but there's no green units within range 2, so it moves to the next, which is yellow. So it's going to do 2 infantry damage to that, to my Jeep. Like that. And then this machine gun crew is in the same position. They would normally want to attack an infantry unit, but they have no other option but the Jeep. And that machine gun crew also has no other option but the Jeep. And we're not done yet, folks. Because then we have the blue unit there, which will again flip over and show us its true colors, which is a mortar crew, which will attack then do 2 HE damage, ideally to a purple unit first, then to a green unit, then to a red, and then finally yellow, which is its only target. So that's a lot. Well, let's resolve combat for this German machine gun crew. So let's first roll to see if what kind of damage my HE attack from my mortar crew does. So if you remember me showing earlier, I roll the die. If it's a red symbol, no damage. A black symbol, 1 damage. And then if it's one of the green symbols, it's actually a critical. And that's 2 damage. So I ideally want green here. Black, so 1 damage for sure from the mortar, and then, or not, I shouldn't say for sure. 1 damage from the mortar, that's coming in, and then 2 damage from the other 2 units. So 3 damage total, but then the machine gun crew does have cover of 2 because it is in a building. And of course it succeeds on both their defense rolls. So the net result is they take just a single point of damage, but because of the successful HE attack, that's another point of damage on this building. So looks like there's a good chance that building's going to go before I even destroy the unit, which is acceptable. That's one way of doing it. All right, so let's roll the HE damage of the enemy veteran mortar crew. Wow. Oh, fail. That's a miss. That's good. And then 1. Okay, so then because for HE damage, yeah, for HE damage and for infantry damage, that Jeep does get to roll defense for, which means I take all of these infantry die, and I'm hoping for all red symbols, but very unlikely that's going to happen, right? In fact, no red symbols. Well, almost makes me feel better. If I had like 4 red symbols, then I'd feel bad. So it would be taking 5 damage right now. It only needed 1 more to destroy it. So that guy is gone. Another casualty in this battle for the Americans. So, all right, and then that's the damage phase. I think we took care of everything. So after damage, we move on to supply. No control point changes for the enemy, but for me, now I get the. I do take control of that 1 ammunition control point, which will be nice to get another point of ammunition each turn. So then I go ahead and update my income for ammunition, and then we do the income. So 2 manpower, 2 for ammunition, 2 for fuel, 1 victory point. Yeah, because unfortunately my Jeep did not survive. So that point's still contested. And then, oh yeah, all right. This is important too. So this unit will now foot back because it's no longer within 2 of one of my units, and that one also will foot back because that Jeep is gone. So this unit will not foot back because it's within 2 of this infantry unit. So it stays revealed. Now, obviously, technically I should have just remembered this, but okay. So both of these have that pin reveal effect. So what that means is for sure I don't want to reveal these with an infantry, because then the infantry unit that reveals these would immediately become pinned. This unit's safe. So if either of these move into this space, the corresponding token would flip, and the reveal effect would have no impact because my infantry is in a building. But just something that I want to mention before I forget. Of course, and then enemy gets reinforcements because you clearly can tell they're so low on forces right now, and it's a green and a blue. So a green and a blue. And they now are in the red. And they now have 4. They now go through 4 command points each turn. So, it's in a way it's not like a horrible thing that they have more troops to move, because that means you can only do so much with your troops, since you have to use your command points, which are limited. But they also now have 1 more command point per turn during the maneuver phase. So, and mortar crew flips back now that it's attacked. And let's put these to the side. Keep things clean. Take these back. All right. So I think that summarizes everything for round 4. Moving into round 5, things don't look very good. It might be I might be able to even call it. Maybe we'll just do this one last round, because I'm pretty sure if I don't get this victory point within this turn, I mathematically can't win the game. So, yeah, unfortunately, this does look like it might turn into a loss. But I at least want us to get this Greyhound into the fight. Hopefully it can do some damage. If you're wondering, yeah, so a problem right now, which it is what it is, but hey, maybe it's a kind of also a learning thing. Oh, wait, what am I talking about? First, I do get to spend my resources, and I definitely am going to go for a Jeep. I'm realizing now getting a Jeep is really helpful, because they have the ability to, first of all, move fast, and they can control objectives or take control of a control point. And I'm going to need them to control that control point for me if I want a chance, but I don't even think it's going to matter. But point is that's definitely what I want to spend my money on. Can I do any upgrades? I can. I can upgrade that. Oh, wait, I already did upgrade the tank. I almost forgot about that. I did not want to move that die. So the tank is already upgraded. Can't upgrade a unit more than once. So I could, though, upgrade that infantry unit, but that takes, it's 4, and I only have 3. So, no, and the mortar crew's already upgraded anyway. It's got the speed ability, and there's nothing I can upgrade the Jeep with. There's reinforcement. I don't think I would have had to use the reinforcement, or would have had the opportunity to use that reinforcement ability. Maybe I could have. So, minor asterisk maybe on this game. But, okay, so now I'm actually done with round 4. Moving into round 5. Okay, so start of round 5. I get to go first, as always, with 3 command points. And let's see how, this Jeep's definitely not going to make it all the way to that control point. But I definitely want to move that in. So let's, by the way, I don't know if never mind. I unpacked that. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Can make it that, I guess, why not? So 1, the speed die, and then 2, 3, 4. So that's my turn. So now we use the phase 2 AI action deck cards. Well, okay, there's 4 actions too. And remember, now the AI will have 4 command points per turn, for 12 total. So they'll be able to make a lot more happen than I will be able to. Alright, so their first is a red unit, which they still shouldn't have. Yeah, they do get another red next turn. Alright, so red, which they don't have yet. So we move on to yellow. And the yellow sword, I'm sure I will eventually memorize all of these, but yellow sword is Yellow assault. Unrevealed yellow unit. So we have 2. Closest to base, which is this one for sure. Okay. And then moves to nearest enemy unit. Which would be these guys. So they get to use a speed die for 1, and then 2, 3, 4. Yeah, they make it all the way there. Oh crap! So once they get to here, they technically would flip over, just because this unit now can spot it, and it's a veteran anti-tank gun. Wow, you have to be kidding me! Right in line of sight of my Greyhound. Perfect. Like, this game could not go any better for me. So that's, and then it stops right there. And that's the AI turn. Comes back to me. 3 command points. And, well, I mean, I wanted to move my tank up. I'm going to have to move my tank up into the control point now. It would have been great to actually put it there, but now that space is blocked. I think I can move through enemy units. I just can't land on enemy units. No, I can move through my own units. Units cannot move through hexes with water or through enemy units. So I can't move through that. They literally could not have done a better job of blocking me off. Okay, well, I literally just go here then, I guess, just to get me that much closer. Yeah, there's like not... I don't even know if I want to do that, honestly, because then I'm in range of that unit. It's just one more thing that could hurt me, which seems stupid. Oh, I've not been playing... So tanks... Or is that just for heavy tanks? I think it's just heavy tanks that we have to worry about facing. Let me double check. So advanced rules have facing incorporated in them for tanks, and I can't remember if it's only heavy tanks, which might heavy vehicle units. Yep. So that's not relevant for the Greyhound. So it's gonna go. I'm gonna put him out there actually, and I mean it doesn't. I don't even know what's gonna matter. It does get a speed die. So it only would have to use 1 cube. And I said it doesn't matter because I don't think I really want to do anything else with any of my other units right now. My mortar crew's happy where it's at. This jeep's done. These guys have no reason to move out of their building. And my tank is as close as it's going to be able to get because if I could try to go around, but that's just going to take way too long. So I'm going to have to forfeit my 2 cubes. We go back to the enemy AI. Oh, did I? Okay, so I did something a little wrong. Let's rectify that. So I only used up 3 cubes, and I already made my mistake. So I used 3 cubes. They have a 4th cube because they're in the red phase now. So then we would move on to the next action, which is the blue unit barrage, which is just move the blue unit closer. Move towards a hex that is 4 hexes away from the nearest enemy unit. So that's just going to move it, I think, here, essentially. and that would be the last command point. So that was technically the me finishing the enemy AI's first turn of this round. So now we move on to the next turn, which again starts with a red, which we don't have yet for the enemy AI. So we move to green. The green victory point, which basically means trying. Well, yeah, perfect. I mean, it's makes a lot of sense. They're gonna. This enemy unit is, well, let's just confirm, not on a control point. So there's two priorities closest to victory point, which is then of course these guys, which we already did know was the MG crew, which we will face this direction. I think that would make sense. And the in this case, okay, just go explain, get into the weeds here with the rules. Both this unit and this unit would have had the ability to sight this unit, or spot this unit, or reveal this unit. And then the rules say if you have two units that could reveal a unit, then you go in reading order. So then this is the unit that technically reveals this German machine gun crew, which I know I'm seeing the lighting's kind of bad, but it's a German machine gun crew. I'll put that close here, and it has the pin reveal ability, but enemies or my units in buildings cannot be pinned. So then my infantry unit up there, fortunately, does not have to take a pin result or pin effect. So that was one movement or one command cube, and they still have three left. Barrage is the next, or the blue unit's the next one, which 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they have two options here to get closer to this unit, which is this space and this space. Whenever you have two choices, you do, what is it? I'm sure you're all yelling at the screen, reading order, which would put then this cube as the right, or this hex is the right hex. And that unit's now done moving because it's now within 4 of that Greyhound. And then, so that means we still have two more cubes left for this turn for the AI. So we move to the last action on their card, which is the yellow control point. Yellow unit that is not on a neutral or player controlled point, which could be that unit, but that one's now exhausted, so the only option is that unit. And then move towards nearest. Oh, I made a mistake. We do have another blue unit on the board. Could that within 3 hexes of enemy closest to base? So I may have made a little bit of a mistake there, because that blue unit's technically closest to base, and I'm wondering if actually I went too fast. So I'm thinking actually the very first turn, the one up here would have gone down 1. That would have been the fourth. That would have been the fourth cube of the fourth command cube. Then now on this turn, it would also be the priority unit again, because neither of the blues are within 3 hexes, so the next is closest to base, which is that one. So now it's going to use up the rest of its movement, so 2. And in this case, I don't know if it even bothers moving, because it's not going to be able to get any closer taking that path. Well, I think it does. It must have to, because, yeah, we'll say it does, because that is the path it would otherwise be taking. But okay. And now is that, so that's 3 on that unit, which means we would go to the final yellow action, which is control point, which is this unit, move towards nearest control point that the AI does not control. Which is that one actually. 1, 2. Yeah. I don't think yellow units for the AI can control points, but okay. Oops. And the first would have been a speed, and now the AI is done, so it's back to me for my final turn of the round. I have 3 command cubes to spend, and guess what? I'm not going to spend any of them because there's nothing I really want to do, which means we go back to the AI for their final. And it's armor assault, so red we don't have. Green, the green control point, which green unit that is not on a player controlled or neutral control point. So that could be this unit, could be that unit, or that unit. I forgot about that unit. Gosh. Man, they have a lot of units. So it could be all 3 of those. Then it says closest to base, which is definitely this one in the far back. And then move towards the nearest control point AI does not control and has no units on. Which, man, now, so these ones the AI controls, these 2 it has units on. So it's going to be either this one or this one. And let's do a quick count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it will go towards this one. And in terms of the path it will take, I think you have to look at the current state on the board, which means it will go kind of around this way to use up 3 movement points. I could be wrong on that, but because if it moves here, it can't then move a third onto one of those unit spaces because it's occupied. So 1, 2, 3, which maybe changes the. What, does it even change? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Because then that means that they're equal distance from each other. And then that means that's the one that would choose because of. Or how much is this one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so that's also 9 now. So I think it actually might start going this direction. Because in reading order, since this is 9, this is 9, this is 9, then that is the option based on reading order. Man, I could see an argument either way that it's this one or that one, but the way I understand it is, let me just reread what it says in the cooperative rules about picking the location, measuring distance. When an instruction refers to distance, it means the number of hexes the AI must move to get to that hex. For example, if a river is between a unit and a control point, the distance between the two is the number of hexes the unit must travel around the river. So I think in this instance, I do have. Because in total, I would normally get to move through that unit. But in this particular instance, because this is the third space, it changes things. And then maybe it just stops there. God, I'm taking way too much time on that. Okay, we'll say it moves there. It can't move any further, so it's done. And then there's still, I think it still has 2 Yeah, 2 left. So then it's a blue barrage, which means this one already has 3, so it would be this one, and it would try to get within 4, which I think now it can. It'll be going 1, 2, and 1, 2. Yep. So that's the AI turn. All right. On the damage. Okay. So let's just do my damage against the enemy first. Well, I gotta. What sucks is this is simultaneous. So it's like a part of me wants to blow this thing up, but right away, but it's gonna. Everything's gonna shoot off at the same time, so it doesn't really matter. You know, I'm gonna have my mortar crew still attack these guys. Do I just try to blow up? You know, my odds are better that I blow up the. And this is even though it was a yellow token, you might. It's a green heart. It has green health. So, just so you know, so this is treated basically as like an infantry in terms of its defense, which is actually almost a good thing because all 3 of these units, all 4, well, these 3 units all have anti-infantry weapons. Except the mortar, so it makes sense for me to for sure go after the building with my mortar crew. For these infantry, I think they should just stack up. Well, these guys are not going to be rolling defense. Oh, also, we'll have them face this way because they do have facing. So these guys for sure are going to attack those guys because that's the only unit they have in range with just 1 infantry attack die. Because they only have 1 point, yep. And then this guy has a choice. He can either try to go for the machine gun crew back here, or the tank, the anti-tank right in front of him, and he has 2 infantry and 1 HE. And you can't split up the damage of the same type, but you can split up the damage from each different type of attack. So the HE damage that Greyhound can do, because I upgraded it, can go on a different unit than I put the anti-infantry, but I can't split up the anti-infantry. So, and if I don't put these 2 on it, it's going to live. So I think I have to put the 2 anti-infantry from my Greyhound there. And then it still has the HE, which then it could put over on that unit. And then this unit's going to have 1 infantry damage, which it will just do on the machine gun crew, because that unit now is done for. Alright, now the Germans get to attack. And okay, so attack priority is an infantry unit, which would be that one, which they do 1 damage. And okay, the anti-tank clearly without me checking, but we'll check anyway, must go after the tank right in front of it. Or wait, tank is yellow. The Greyhound's yellow. So technically it targets armor, first goes after red, but then it's yellow. Okay, well then if it's yellow, closest to victory, because I technically have 2 yellow, because the Jeep's yellow as well, but then it says closest to victory point, then which is the tank, the Greyhound. So maybe I could have finessed that a little better and had it try to blow up the Jeep instead of the tank. But, well, needless to say, it's going to be that Greyhound's taking 2 points of undefendable tank damage, which is too bad. And then, okay, so that's done. This machine gun crew also goes after the infantry, my infantry in the building. And then, last but certainly not least, the blue unit back here, which again is that veteran mortar crew. Their only option is the 1, 2, 3, 4. Ooh, they could go after 4 and 4. So I think a mortar crew does high explosive. High explosive. First, they do go after green. So that's 2 points of high explosive damage going towards my infantry in the building. Wow, there's a lot of combat resolution this turn. Oh man, this is so messy too because I'm gonna. Okay. So this unit, first of all, we have to see how many, what kind of success I have with the mortar attack, and it's black, meaning 1 point of damage that gets through. So then, because they are in a building, they get 2 cover rolls automatically. One of them is a failure, is a red. One's a success. So they block 1 point of damage, but do take a point, and this building gets another point of damage from my HE attack being a success. So they're in a very... If I was that machine gun crew, I would be running out of the building at this point. Because 1 more damage and that building collapses, which I assume destroys the unit. Okay. So then let's resolve these guys who first of all, let's roll to see what kind of success the enemy mortar crew does. So a green, that's a crit, plus an infantry. So that's a total of 3 successes. Yeah. So 3 successes, plus the... Yeah, this is getting messy. So there's a total of 5 hits on that unit. And they get to, but they only get, and they get 2 dot cover roll. So if you're doing your math, both of these need to be a success, and only 1 is. So that means they still take 4 hits. So this whole unit gets destroyed. And by the way, I think that the mortar crew did 3 points of damage, I believe. So that means this building basically is about to collapse as well. So, okay, now let's just go ahead and do the tank. The tank straight up just takes 2 armor. Oh wait, it's front armor. Or no, it's not. I think heavy armor is only for heavy tanks. Let me double check. Which is advance roll. It has to be frontal armor, heavy vehicles, have front, yeah. So it straight up takes 2 points of damage because yellow, when being attacked with tanks, gets no kind of cover defense dice. So the Greyhound has a total of 3 health. Now it's down to just 2. So that's too bad. It's funny. Oh no, anyway. All right, and then for this anti-tank gun gets just demolished. So yay! I actually defeated an enemy unit for once. Quite the accomplishment. And that does mean then I get to take a point of experience. So that's cool. And then what else do I have to resolve? Oh yeah, the Greyhound is trying to do some high explosion damage on that MG crew. So, first of all, we see if it's a successful attack, which it's not. No, that makes life easier. Don't even get to roll to see if I do damage. Okay, so damage is resolved. So we can clean up here all the cubes. This mortar team goes back to being unrevealed. This MG crew is now technically unrevealed and has the potential to pin again once revealed. And what else? So now we move on to supply. So I have, am I controlling anything new? No, nothing new. So my income levels are all the same. So I just add what I make. So 2, 2, 2, 1. And then moving on to purchasing. So can't really upgrade anything. Ooh, the Jeep does, no, Jeep doesn't. Never mind. And I was going to say repair. Well, the infantry, I don't even know if they would have been able to repair my tank or not, technically, if they're in a building. I'm kind of at a loss here in what to... I feel like Greyhounds are nice, but I don't even have the manpower for that right now. Getting another Jeep. I think I might have to just take a loss, actually, because I'm looking at the board right now and it's not looking like I'm going to be able to do anything when I only have a few more rounds left to get a total of 10 victory points, which again, I definitely need that other victory point controls, that other victory control point for sure. Which doesn't seem feasible at all for me to go after. So, and this video has now been getting kind of long, so I think I'll just end this with a loss. And I think I'd still covered pretty much all aspects of the game in the video. And the one thing I didn't quite get to was spending my experience point, which I'm already looking at and would have used. Well, let's hit the dirt. Riflemen may spend a CP to drop the ground, gaining +1 defense die this round. This unit cannot move until the next maneuver phase. Otherwise, I could spend one, I think, to... Riflemen may spend 4 CP per round. So that's nice, but it's like at this point in the game, it doesn't really help me a lot. I did move my infantry up a little faster than I otherwise would have, but or I could spend on an I could spend on a potential upgrade by making my mortar crew a little more effective. That's probably what I would do. Honestly speaking, just because having 2 explosion die per attack is going to be much better than just the 1. That potentially means 4 damage if I have 2 crits. But at this point, again, I just don't think that's going to make or break the game for me. So we'll call it here. The enemy AI overwhelmed me. I mean, they just have so much on the board that's coming in, and I have so little right now, and I could buy maybe 1 unit, but it's all going to start way back here, so I just see this being more or less a bloodbath at this point. The Greyhound definitely could help clean up the situation because it's got it's going to have the 3 different attacks, and it's good against infantry arms, which are these 2, but it's only got 1 damage left before it's dead. So there was a pretty good chance it's going to get that within the next round. All right, well, then I'll stop the game here, and I'll give you then my kind of initial impressions of this game. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching me play this.
All right, so what did I think of this game? First, let's talk about the things that I enjoyed. First of all, it's probably difficult to see from where you're at, but these miniatures are fantastic. A lot of detail in all the different unit miniatures that come with this game. And that definitely, it's hard not to be attracted to that aspect of a game like this, where you basically have plastic war miniatures that you get to play with. And I'm just realizing this one actually does call out that this is a Sherman tank on the bottom. It's hard to see that, but that's kind of cool. Because I was wondering about that. I guess the Greyhound doesn't have a name on it. But anyway, point is the miniatures are cool. The infantry soldiers are not as detailed as the tanks and vehicles, but they definitely are good enough in my opinion. And it's cool that they even have the miniature weapon teams figures too. So the mini mortar and mini machine guns that you get to add to your unit bases. So that's a lot of fun. The game's relatively fast-paced. Now, you're probably saying, how is that possible when it took me like a few hours to record a playthrough for this game? But the reality is that I hope you saw when I was doing the playthrough is on your turn, it's really quick. Like, you're moving your unit and you're done with your command points. And you only have 9 command points each turn anyway to spend. So your turn can only be so long, which is nice. Like in a lot of war games, that's not necessarily the case. As the game extends, sometimes turns get longer and longer. But this game, even if you might add more units to your side over time, the situation is the same, that you only have those 9 command points for the whole round and only 3 per turn, which forces you to really make tough choices. But in terms of time to play the game, it's not going to extend in that aspect, which I appreciate. Also, a great part of this game is the board itself. Hopefully you could tell from watching the video that this is a pretty big board. The hexes on the board are nice and big, and man, that really makes me happy, because so often you play war games where the hexes just don't seem big enough for the units. But that is not really a problem at all in this game. So I applaud the designers and publishing team on making the decision to have a nice big board with big hexes. I love that. What's cool about this game is there are a lot of options to be made while you're playing. Of course, to start, you only have the one building available to build units from, so you only have 3 unit choices. But even from that, you have different upgrade options for those units. Of course, then when it does come time to spend your resources, you then may have the opportunity to add the other buildings and start making units from those other from the other buildings. You eventually will get the option, hopefully, to start using some of your commander abilities, which unfortunately I never got the chance to use in my playthrough, but that's another avenue for options. And that's just in terms of spending resources, so there's a lot there. But in terms of moving your units around the board, I do think you have to keep there's a lot of strategy involved in the game, which I hope was evident in my playthrough, in terms of, do you want to move forward with your infantry units, or do you want to move forward with your vehicles, which, at least in the solo mode, aren't susceptible to being pinned by revealing enemy units, but at the same time, your tank at least can't control a victory point, and that victory point in the middle of the map that I was going for, it was kind of tight quarters there. So if my tank's taking up the spot, then I can't put an infantry unit on it to take it. So you kind of have to make a decision around the best approach to accomplishing your objectives. So a lot of options in this game that I felt were all rich options too. I never felt like, oh, well, I'm going to have to do this because this is the only thing that makes sense. It often seemed like, well, I could do this or this, and either seemed like an option that was equally good. So I appreciated that part about the game. Setup time. The setup time for the game for me was really dependent on the fact that I had all these, terrain expansion buildings that I was looking to figure out where I placed on the board. These flag things, I guess, that came from the terrain expansion weren't too big of a hassle. But otherwise, since there's no terrain tiles in the game, you don't have to worry about that. And you start with just 2 units per side, whether competitive or cooperative or solo. Sorry. So setup is relatively minimal, which for a relatively meaty war game is refreshing. I do appreciate the machine gun pinning rules in this game. At first, I didn't know what if I was going to find them annoying, but in practice, when playing the game, it made sense to me and how you move into the field of fire of a machine gun, you get pinned. Your infantry units will get pinned, and that seemed thematic to me. Obviously, infantry units rushing up on a machine gun nest, they're gonna have to proceed with caution. So that seemed very thematic, and it definitely showcased the value of having vehicles approach machine guns first, because those units aren't going to get pinned, so I really like that, and it also values the ability of spotting with a vehicle up front, having a mortar crew in the back to shoot from a distance, since mortar crews have that extended range of 4. So I liked all of the technical nature of that whole type of situation brought upon by the pinning rules of machine guns, and that if you're in a building, you're not going to be liable to being pinned by a machine gun crew, which of course is kind of the strategy that I realized I needed to take in my playthroughs. Like, oh, here's a building that I can just put my units in and try to fight house to house. So that was really cool. Building destruction also related to that. Building destruction is fun. Obviously, I didn't quite blow up any buildings in my playthrough, but I came close, and that seems super thematic. Like in World War II games, you're always running through these villages where every building just blown up because of all the fighting that's been going on, and it's like, I wasn't around in 1940s, but I can imagine a lot of these cities were just a bunch of rubble because of the artillery barrages and mortar attacks, and it makes sense that these buildings should blow up at some point, and that you're not just by being in a building, you're safe for the rest of the game. Like that MG crew that I was trying to take out was eventually going to blow up in that building if I had one more turn. So buildings are very powerful because they give you those 2 cover dice, but they're also liable to getting destroyed, which I think is cool. And the command point system in general, I thought was relatively intuitive. Like since you didn't have to worry about terrain and all that, it made moving relatively quick. 1 command point per space moved, 1 command point to unpack your weapons team, 1 command point to pack up your weapons team. So all that made a lot of sense to me. The supply phase was also relatively simple in a good way. You check to see if you add any more income, and then you just take your income and add it to your stockpile, and then you spend the resources on what you want. And all that was pretty clear to me in this first playthrough. And then at first I thought the damage system seemed kind of boring. It seemed kind of rock paper scissors, like, oh, infantry good against infantry, tanks good against tanks, artillery good against tanks, that kind of thing. And it's like, it didn't seem very flavorful. But in practice, it actually, of course, makes the game more streamlined, the way that the game was designed around the damage chart. And it does work. I definitely appreciated not having to roll combat by combat, unit by unit, and just like assign damage. And then in the cases, there's situations, of course, where you get to roll defense. If you're a tank getting infantry fire, you get to roll all the incoming attacks to see if you can block them. And I liked how, I think I may have been playing this incorrectly at first, but when you're in a building, you get 2 cover dice total. Like you could, and so if you have like 5 units attacking you, and so you're taking 10 infantry damage, you still only get the 2 cover dice. So you're pretty much guaranteed then to get destroyed in that sense. It's not 2 cover dice per separate attack, which made me realize then also buildings aren't impenetrable forces if you team up on a building, which I thought was I liked how that was how damage is handled then in that regard. So in short, I do appreciate how the damage is resolved in the game. Now that I've done a playthrough, and I didn't actually use it, but I probably should have. And one thing that I thought was, which now doing the playthrough I appreciate, is the retreat rule. So if you want at any point during the maneuver phase, you can just tell a unit to retreat, and it, even regardless of how many command points it has available, it just starts moving back 3 spaces at a time towards your spawn point or reinforcement point or retreat point. And that seemed kind of thematic too. Like, eventually from a video game standpoint, it seemed like in a lot of video games, sometimes you have your units that get scared or whatever, and they just automatically start retreating. You lose control of them, and you can't like tell them to do anything anymore because they're trying to regroup. And I thought that retreat rule simulates that aspect of playing war-themed video games very well. Thematically, it makes sense too. Of course, units are gonna maybe get scared and overwhelmed and want to retreat and regroup. But in the context that this is a game based on a PC game, I thought that was a great implementation of a retreat type of mechanic. And then the solo system itself. Okay, so obviously I played this as a solo game, so I can't really comment on what I would how I would feel about this game from a competitive play standpoint. But from a solo experience standpoint, I do appreciate the solo system. I need to make that clear. In a previous video I did for my Cowboys 2 video, I used their solo system, which was basically like an afterthought. The solo system in Company of Heroes was definitely well thought out. I like how they have these tokens that are unrevealed as they move closer to you. That seems very, again, thematic from a PC game, thematic from a real world perspective, in that you don't know what's coming at you. But thematic from a PC game perspective too, because in the PC game you have the fog of war, so you typically don't see enemy units until they're within vision of your troops. And so I thought they implemented that mechanic very well by having these unrevealed discs that are slowly approaching you, and then in terms of what the AI is actually doing on their turn, almost all the actions made sense. And what definitely helps is the implementation of this reading rule, which makes it easier to make a lot of decisions where you have multiple options for the AI by just following this reading order rule. Which, again, the game itself gives credit to the reading order rule from Scythe, and so I want to give credit to then the team that used that for Scythe as well. But nonetheless, it works in this game. I never felt at any point the AI was doing something like, why are they doing that? Like, or I felt like I could kind of cheat the system per se. There was the one point where I explained how I was grouping all the damage from the AI in one of my units because I felt that was still within the confines of how the AI is supposed to play, and I do expect in the future that they might make rule changes to prevent that from happening. But other than that one situation, I never felt like I could really cheat the system. So again, the solo system in general, I felt was well done. So what were kind of my gripes about the game? Well, first of all, which I already mentioned in the game, in the playthrough itself, but if you just wanted to skip ahead to my final thoughts here and avoid having to watch my hours of playthrough, too many rule books. Like, I get that they wanted to have a solo expansion, therefore the solo rules were only in that solo expansion. I understand having the need for a mission booklet, and I understand having the desire to have 2 sets of rules, basic and advanced. But in the end, dealing with 4 rule books is really frustrating. And then sometimes you're looking at, and I think I kind of showcased this during my playthrough. There was a lot of times where it's like, okay, I know there is a rule about this somewhere, but which rule book do I find that in? Is it the solo book? Is it the advanced rule book? Is it the basic rule book? A good example is that buildings get to ignore pinning. So I think I was first checking the advanced rule book to see if I saw that in there, and then I checked the basic rule book, and I can't even remember if I found it in the pinning rules or the building rules. And so I just think the rule books themselves could be organized a little better and hopefully condensed. And the dice can get messy. So functionally, using the die to represent the various abilities certain units can have, I think, is okay. But as I was playing the game towards the end there, for sure, trying to first of all explain that, use the die to show that, that this unit has the HE ability, but then also rolling this die for an HE attack, it got messy because then I of course had HD die on the board. I'm like, is that because I'm trying to show that unit has the HE upgrade, or is it because I was rolling that for a unit? And I kind of wish that they would have just had unit dice that, the upgrade dice, which are only ever meant to be for upgrade purposes, like a certain color, and then the die that are meant to be rolled a different color, or some sort of different system, just for organizational standpoint. And that's kind of it still works as the game is currently, but that's just something that I was noticing towards the end. And it could just be simply the rules giving you clear directions on how to handle that. Like, put your dice here for abilities, put your dice here when you're attacking. I don't know, that sort of thing. I don't feel the solo mode, although I really appreciated the solo mode and I thought it was well designed and works well, I don't think it was well integrated into the core rules and advanced rules. I think that the advanced rules and basic rules kind of leave out a lot of stuff about the solo mode, and I think that there should have been bullet points like if playing solo mode, this. If you're playing solo mode, you don't do this but still do this, or that sort of thing in the basic and advanced rules. And instead, that's all in the solo rulebook. But then there are certain aspects of the game where it's like, well, this isn't mentioned in the solo rulebook, so but it's also not really addressed in the basic and advanced rulebook. So what should I do? It's kind of assumed, for example, that you can play with experience in both the solo mode and regular modes or advanced mode. But is that recommended to play the solo mode with the advanced rules with experience and commander abilities or not? Like, the rulebook doesn't really blatantly tell you that. So there were definitely a few other aspects. And then, like, physically speaking, the command cube thing, like, this was something I realized. It's like the solo expansion gives you 6 additional black command cubes, so it's like, okay, so the AI is supposed to be using the black command point or cubes for command points, where in the base game I feel like you're using the white cubes to represent command points, and then the black cubes are just meant to represent victory points on your resource management board. So that kind of was a disconnect for me. Very minor gripe. It's like, why doesn't it just tell me to use the white cubes for AI, command point tracking? But whatever. But also another component thing was the I get these 3D buildings and the AI tokens don't really fit into them, and that's frustrating because had I known that, I would probably be playing this game mostly solo and cooperative. Anyway, so that's a minor thing, but part of the whole, I don't feel the solo mode was as well integrated into the rest of the game as it could have been. And then because of that, and a variety of other things, there's a lot of errata already for this game. If you go online, the website for Company of Heroes has a lot of what they say are clarifications, a lot of what they're saying they're working on for the future, but just a lot of rules that definitely aren't mentioned in the game that I have. And that's just frustrating. I thought this game was getting a lot of play testing based on what I saw online in their Discord channel, so I felt like this game was going to come and be like 99% good, and it's like 75% good. It still seems like there's a lot of things that are going to need to get changed for their 1.5 version, which they are planning to release or do another Kickstarter. I'm guessing it'll be a Kickstarter in the future. And is it uncommon for games to do this? No. Of course, there's a lot of Kickstarter projects come out with their first edition, do another Kickstarter project, and for backers of that first project, they do an errata update pack thing. So, but I just felt there was more errata needed for this game than normal for other games that have experienced that with. Which so that's kind of disappointing. But it is what it is, you know. At least, of course, with that said, they're definitely doing a good job of trying to address all of these things. Like I said, you can go to their website, and it does tell you all the errata that they want to implement or should be implemented when you're playing this game. So at least they're not ignoring it. It's just frustrating that this version of the game I have feels like it's 75% of what it should be. But I'll probably get the errata pack when it comes out, and hopefully that fixes then everything so far that's been noticed that needs fixing. There's a lack of terrain in the game. They implement this cover rule system, which I didn't even think I really needed to use in my playthrough, which is what it is. But I'm not a big fan of the cover rule system. It's a kind of wonky in that you have the borders of certain hexes with heavier light cover. You know, if the line of sight crosses that side of the hex, and the rules say that if just only one, you know, if you're getting attacked from multiple directions, but just one of the directions goes through the hex with heavier light cover, then you get that cover. But then it would make sense to me, like, well, if you're surrounding a hex, then maybe shouldn't it be the opposite, where then you don't get cover anymore because that hex is now surrounded? Didn't come up in our playthrough, but something that just was a little confusing to me. And also, you know, I love the solo mode, like I said, but what frustrated me is there's just like a lack of scenarios. So like if I play this again, the way the game is going to play out is going to be very similar to this first playthrough. And that's fine because there's still a lot of variables that could be introduced. I could play with a different faction, first of all. I could try the British or the Soviets. The errata says, so again, not in the solo rules, but online you'll see that they say that doesn't recommend you playing with the German faction. That's fine. So I still get to play with 3 of the 4 factions against the AI. The AI now has multiple generals of varying difficulties that I could play against. So even if I played this very same map again, there's a lot of changes that I could introduce to make a different play experience, but at the same time, the overall strategy is going to be the same. There's 3 victory points on the map, and I'm going to get guaranteed to get the one on the left, and then I'll be fighting for the one in the middle. Maybe in a different gameplay, I would try to go for the one on the right side of the map by taking, you know, this back route to get there. But the game state is more or less similar from game to game. And what I'm trying to get at is it would have been very fun or cool to me if they introduced scenarios to solo play. Where instead of just trying to play the traditional mode where you're just trying to get a victory point, control a victory point location and get up to 10 victory points, that you have more of an objective, like you're trying to take out a specific unit, or you're trying to hold a specific location for a certain amount of turns, or any other related type of scenario that you could come up with, and still use the solo system that comes with the game, because I think the solo system works, but just like with a unique objective. Or different, you know, unique type of scenario, maybe specific setup for the scenario in terms of the units of the enemy that start on the board. Maybe they call out the specific unit, you know, or they could do either. They could say just 5, you know, you put a green token here, yellow token here, blue token, or find this unit, find this unit, find this unit, and place it on the board. Introduce like specific nuances to that scenario in terms of how the AI might act. You know, in this scenario, the AI is always revealed. Ignore revealed effects. There's just a lot of potential with the solo system, and I think the basic starting point is in the game. There's this annihilation mode for competitive play, where instead of trying to get victory points by controlling the victory control points, you're just trying to destroy your enemy base. And likewise, they're trying to destroy your base, which seems so RTS to me. Like, that's the traditional RTS. You're just trying to destroy the enemy base. So that mode, I didn't even know that mode existed in the game till I got it. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I hope I can play this solitaire, and you can't. It's not really built into the solo system right now. I feel like that's definitely something that can be remedied. I am sure that if they need, maybe they need to add more solo action cards and whatnot, but I would love to think in a future expansion they could incorporate Annihilation mode as an option for solo and cooperative play, because that sounds like a more engaging and fun experience than playing actually the regular mode solo. Because like I just said, like that to me sounds like more of an RTS experience. And then somehow maybe incorporating that the AI also has buildings, and the AI, by having these buildings, the AI can do certain things, and if you destroy those buildings, like in a regular RTS game, the AI is going to be handicapped to some degree. So anyway, there's just a lot of potential I feel for the solo mode that I hope gets addressed in future, expansions or whatnot for this game. So all that said, I think the game that this definitely reminds me of a lot in a variety of ways is my Tide of Iron game, which I've always been a huge fan of when it came out over 10 years ago. And the one thing that I would say that this game doesn't do that Tide of Iron did is, factor in the effectiveness of a squad based on the number of miniatures in it. So in this game, whether you have one figure or four for your infantry unit, you're still outputting the same amount of damage. Whereas in Tide of Iron, one unit only is 1 die, 4 units 4 die. A minor thing, but something that part of me wishes that this game somehow incorporated into it. And the condensation, they condensed the rulebook into one rulebook besides scenarios. They one rulebook, but also have then the separate scenario book. But that game also didn't have solo play. So I bring up Tide of Iron because I'd play this because it has solo play. Tide of Iron didn't. Tide of Iron had solo play, then I would maybe play that game. But the one thing I need to make clear is Tide of Iron definitely has more rules in it, so it is more complicated and is going to be a little more overwhelming to play, at least competitively, than this game would be. So the barrier of entry for this game is definitely lower from at least a competitive standpoint. But with that said, I do think it kind of has its own place in tactical World War II games, which I feel is what this game was trying to accomplish. Trying to be kind of a middle ground between Memoir 44, Tide of Iron, and then maybe Combat Commander or the Conflict of Heroes games. And this does kind of have its own area in the spectrum of World War II tactical games. So I think they accomplished what they were trying to do with this game. And at the end of the day, I definitely would want to play this game again. I definitely made some mistakes in terms of how I was playing the game the first time around, which I think did hamper my experience a little bit negatively. And that's my own doing. Like, I wasn't following the rules correctly. And so for that reason, I think I would want maybe play the game again. Maybe playing without the star veteran units for the AI, just because that maybe made the game a little more difficult than necessary for my first time around. And as I already said, I now realize the basic concept of not exploring with your infantry because they can get pinned so easily. So playing this game again, I think I would have a much more enjoyable experience, even though this first time around, I would definitely say I enjoyed the game as it is. So, and competitively, of course, I think this game would be a great competitive game. Having played it solo, I can see that having, it's playing against a human opponent, I think would make the game that much more interesting. But also cooperatively, I would love to try playing the game with another human player against, then I guess, the AI system. I think that sounds kind of fun and interesting. So we'll see if I can ever convince my fiance to try that with me, but that sounds like a fun experience. So with all that said, I definitely would still recommend this game for people that are fans of the PC game, although I can't really speak to the PC game that much since I never really got into it that much. But also for fans of tactical war World War II fighting games. This game does have a lot to offer. You get a lot in the base box, and I think overall it's a solid game. The solo system I appreciate. It's relatively straightforward and quick to play, which is always something that I would want in a solo system. Nothing that's too overly complicated. My first playthrough took a long time because I was referencing a lot of rules, but I think after another playthrough or two, I don't think I should have to reference the rulebook almost at all, and the game would therefore be that much more streamlined for me. So yeah, good game. Definitely check it out. As I mentioned, I think they're sold out of this original Kickstarter version, but they I think are planning a 1.5 Kickstarter project in the future. So check out the website for the Company of Hero board games from Bad Crow if you're interested in that, to stay informed, or join their Discord channel, which I'm a part of and have been chatting a lot on recently. So with that said, I'm Nick from Talking Cardboard. Thanks for watching this video. Hopefully you watched at least some of the playthrough, because like I said, I know it was rather long, but hope to see you guys again soon. Bye.